Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to ReelTok episode 56. My name is George Carmi. I am sat alongside two of my beautiful co-hosts in Seth and Tyler. We are sad and Cam, he tweeted. I'm not going to touch on it too much because, I'll let him speak on it more when he gets back. He just needed some time off. He just needed some time to reset, regenerate, spend some more time on the weekends with his beautiful wife and very handsome son. So we're going to run for 2-3 weeks, maybe just the three of us, perhaps get on a couple of guests. But let's just hop right into this episode. It's October, finally. So we are kind of going to do, over the next couple of weeks, we're going to do like a little bit more horror-centric stuff. We didn't commit to, the 31 days of horror as most podcasts do. I don't think any of us really have the time for that, to rip out. I don't even know if Tyler wants to watch 31 horror movies in a month.
I would. And
I'm gonna Tyler would mind. I think Tyler would.
I'm actually going to bring up something just so I don't forget now. I want to do, I'm going to do Tyler's book reports for this month. So each week you guys are each going to recommend me one movie based on the theme. Horror movie, and I'll watch them, and then next week on the pod I'll do a little book report session, review the two horrors you guys had, and we'll rip through some horrors. And
I'm gonna give you some wild shit.
And obviously, like George is gonna mention, we're gonna review actual horror movies on the pod. I'll watch those. So these are in addition to those. These are gonna be like Tyler's book reports to get me more cultured.
So over the next couple of weeks, our episode rundowns will pretty much look like this. We'll start off with our intro as we usually do. We'll go into, the how are we doing, what's going on. We'll quickly touch on what we've been watching. Then we'll jump into the new reviews, new releases. This week, we're going to be discussing The Creator. All three of us saw that. And then Seth and Tyler will be talking about Saw 10, right? 10.
Yep.
I unfortunately did not get to the theater to see that. And after Tyler's text yesterday, now I'm more excited. It seems like everyone's kind of, we'll touch on it in the review, but it seems like everyone's saying this might be like the best of the franchise. So I'm pretty excited for that. And then we're going to get into our horror section. So every week we've kind of chosen a different horror subgenre. This week, because of The Creator, we've decided to do science fiction horror. So we are going to be reviewing John Carpenter's The Thing. After that review, we'll be getting into a ranking. We're going to be ranking our top 5. We didn't really discuss if we're going to do top 5 best or favorite science fiction films, but I'll keep it at best for now because I think that's what I've mentioned to you guys. And then after that, we're going to draft 80s horror, and then we'll wrap up the episode. So just like that for next week as well, but instead of science fiction horror, we're going to do modern horror. Week 3 is going to be psychological horror. And then week 4, we don't really have a subgenre picked because that's going to be the Halloween episode. So we're going to try to give you guys a nice episode, maybe reviewing 2 movies in the horror realm as opposed to 1. Give you guys a few extra discussions, a few extra rankings. But for now, let's get into this episode. Gentlemen, how are we doing? Seth, I want to talk to you first because you went to the Creator screening. You got to hang out with a bunch of the fellow TikTokers. How was that? How was the rest of your week?
Yeah, it was good. I feel like I'm just going to London so often recently, but it was nice. The Creator screening was cool. The event wasn't great, to be honest. It was one of those events where there was like nothing on. There's nothing to like do at the event itself, but the screening was cool.
Was it labeled as a premiere or an early screening?
No, so it was an early screening, but basically what they usually do at these screenings is it's the BFI IMAX, which is one in London. It's the biggest screen in Europe, the BFI IMAX screen in Europe. And they usually do like photo opportunities, like games, free drinks. You know, like set out like a premiere, but just not quite to the.
They make it like an immersive experience.
That's what. Exactly. We had it for The Flash and for The Last of Us, a couple of other ones, Knock at the Cabin, same sort of thing. But we didn't have anything at this one, which wasn't great. But we did have a Q&A with Gareth Edwards, which was interesting. That was actually really interesting. I really enjoyed that. And yeah, at night we just went out for a bit. And yeah, like just went out, had a drink, not really too much, spent time with like a bunch of other, film people in the space. And yeah, apart from that, pretty decent week. Got a packed week next week. Got I told you, George, like a Blumhouse event next weekend. Seeing The Exorcist Believer, which
0 out of 5.
Yeah, I'm not crazy confident at this point in time.
God.
Yeah, it's not looking great.
I saw that trailer for the first time before I watched Oppenheimer for the second time, and
Yeah,
I
man,
looked at
that's
this
tough.
trailer and I was like, God, Jesus Christ, this
It
looks
looks awful.
beautiful.
But there's like a bunch of other shit. I think it's like a pop-up event, so there'd be some stuff about Five Nights at Freddy's, which I also don't think looks great. I'll be honest.
I don't think it looks great either.
And no, and then obviously BFI Film Festival, like George. When does yours end? When's your last screening?
Our last screening, I believe, is Saturday the 14th.
Oh, okay. So you're
Yeah.
there, like, okay. So
Yeah,
so I'm going
it's
on
2
the.
weeks.
I've got The Boy and the Heron being my first one. That's on the 8th, I think, which is on
Okay.
like a Saturday or Sunday. Looking forward to that. So a bunch of stuff coming up. But yeah, pretty decent week. Nothing really much apart from just going to that event on Wednesday.
Very nice. Tyler, how you doing? Up early today.
Yeah, so Riley's going back home to Dallas, Texas to be with her family for a couple days. So got the house to myself for the next 5 days. But yeah, it's 5:25 a.m. right now recording this, but I got up at 3 a.m. to drive her to the airport and back. So I've been up for a while. So it's going to be an early day and just like a insight into what it's like to be like a workaholic, anxiety-driven person. Like I feel like after like record this podcast, I'm going to edit it a bunch. And then basically once I finish getting this podcast all set, I'm going to just like chill the rest of the day. And in my mind, that's like a wasted day. Like I'm going to be like, oh, I'm going to waste a day. Even though I'm going to like film TikTok still, film a podcast, produce the whole podcast, drive someone to the airport and back. But it's like, because like I'm going to take a break after that and like watch some football without like multitasking. In my mind, I'm going to be the whole time distressed and be like, I'm wasting my time right now. I need to be.
I used to be like that. Yeah, I used to. It's not a nice place to be when you're like that all the time, is it?
No, yeah, it sucks. But overall, this week's been pretty standard. Gonna see if this weekend with being alone is either gonna be very productive and get some projects done around the house, or if it's just gonna be chillaxing. But today, at least, I think once I'm done with the podcast stuff, probably gonna take it easy a bit since it's did not go to bed that early last night and obviously woke up at 3. But yeah, nothing else.
Very nice. Pretty standard from me. A couple of blow-ups at work this week that just overly stressed me out, but nothing crazy. Film festival started yesterday. Got to go to the opening night and watch May December, which was pretty cool. Todd Haynes was there, director, and he brought in a couple of his crew. Obviously, because of the SAG strike, none of the actors and actresses were there. But yeah, fairly standard. Film festival continues today, as I just said with Seth. It goes into the next 2 weeks. So I got another 11 screenings in the film festival, and then on top of that, we're also seeing Foe on Friday, not part of the film festival, just another movie
What's
we're gonna
Foe?
see. It's a new Saoirse Ronan, Paul Mescal movie.
Oh yeah, that was good.
Yeah, looks good. I just learned yesterday that apparently it's the exact same plot as the Black Mirror episode with Aaron Paul from this season. The one where like
The-
he's in
the space one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing. But yeah, fairly
Also-
standard. Yeah.
Sorry, George, carry on.
No,
I was
no,
just,
go.
before you finish. I missed someone at the BFI film at the screen. I was really sad about it. It was Edgar Wright was there.
Oh,
And
no
I
way.
missed him. I know. He
Why
posted
was-
something that
wait,
he was
why
there.
was
after.
he there?
He knows Gareth Edwards, so we just watched. He goes to the BFI all the time. He goes to the IMAX all the time. I think he lives near there. But I was with Jack after, and we looked at my phone, and I just saw his story at the BFI, like with Gareth Edwards. I was like, oh fuck, man.
That sucks.
Yeah,
Damn,
especially for
that's
me. I would have been
tough.
so fucking happy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe next time.
Maybe next year. Maybe
Yeah.
Hayao Miyazaki will be at your Boy and Heron screening.
That should look crazy.
He strikes me as someone that doesn't leave his home after he's written a movie.
No,
He's like, I don't want to
I
deal
don't
with
think
any
so.
of the press. I don't want to deal with any of these premieres. Just drop the movie and
No.
leave me alone.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we're changing things around a little bit. Let's run through what we've been watching this week now, just so that after our reviews, we can just dive right into all of our horror stuff. Do either of you guys have it up and ready?
Yeah,
I'm good to
but-
go whenever.
All right, Seth,
Whoever you
kick
want.
it off.
Yeah, so I gave it 5-star this week. If you guys saw it, I saw Mummy, Javier Dolan's Mummy.
Saw that.
Fuck me, man. Like that shit. Like, it ruined. Have you guys seen it?
No.
No, like so I did the film raffle with the patrons and they recommended it to me, and so I'm gonna watch it this week. And I like replied, I'm like, is that the crybaby who quit directing because no one watched his movies? And
It
they're like,
is, yeah, it is, yeah.
So he's a loser for that, but I hear Mommy's really good.
It's fucking like crazy good.
What's it about?
Really like. So it's about like a kid who's just come out of care, who's like got really bad ADHD, and he lives with his. He's going to live with his mom. He's going to live with his mom, who's like not living in poverty, but she's poor. She can't get a job, and they have like a really weird relationship where this kind of loving one day, then like blowing up the next day, and then I don't want to say too much because it's like one of those things where I don't want to. But I think George,
don't spoil it.
I think you both.
I tossed it on my watch list immediately. I'm like, damn, there's that rare Seth 5 stars out of here.
Yeah, it was horrible. I also watched. Obviously, the creator we spoke about, No One Will Save You, which was obviously the, I think, George, you told me to watch it last week, the Hulu, Apple, Disney Plus one, whatever. Cool, man. I really enjoyed it. It was a good time. I watched the first Wes Anderson short. I might watch the other ones today, which was the Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. Really enjoyed that one, actually. Really had a good time with it. I watched The Neon Demon. It's the Nicholas Refn film with, is it Ellie Fanning? That's her name, isn't it?
Elle Fanning.
Yeah. Elle Fanning. Okay, yeah. That was fucking weird. I watched Cosmopolis. It's the Robert Pattinson, David Cronenberg one. It was actually
movie.
Does he rate that one higher?
It's like
it makes sense.
I swear every time he's on a TikTok live doing like a Letterboxd review, he recommends Cosmopolis to everyone.
It is quite cool. I didn't love it by any means, but I give it a 3.5. It was quite cool, but it's very different. It's not like the usual Cronenberg you come to expect. That's what I would say. The Thing, which obviously we're reviewing, which is just one of my favorite horrors ever, and Cloverfield, which again we're going to review for Patreon review. Well, it's funny. I'll save my talk about Cloverfield for the review, but I just think that's the most George film ever.
So good.
It's literally a found-footage sci-fi horror set in New York. That is the most
Doesn't
George
get more
film ever.
George than that.
No, but yes, I watched a documentary called The Grizzly Man. Have you guys heard of it?
I have heard of it.
It's Werner Herzog, who was like the huge German director, and it's about a guy who basically committed his life to basically saving bears and like being at one with bears, and then he ended up getting killed by a bear, which is some way to go.
It's like the reverse. Man. It's like the reverse brother bear.
Yeah,
yeah, pretty much. Honestly, but it's amazing documentary. If anyone's listening who is a fan of documentaries, I 100% recommend watching it. It's brilliant. That's about it this week, I think. Yeah, that's about it.
It'd be so ass to get just mauled by a bear. That's got to be one of the worst ways to
him and his girl. Apparently, they were in like a tent, I think, and they literally both of them just got fucking mauled.
That's got to be just the worst way to right there with like just drowning or burning alive.
Burning alive, I don't think would be too bad because you'd be like in pain for like what 10 seconds.
Oh my, that's like torturing someone to death watching The Happening or something. It's terrible.
Great.
Tyler, what have you been watching?
Rapid fire went through Saw 6 all the way through Spiral to get caught up in all the Saw movies before Saw 10. And watching all the Saw movies back to back, you think would have beefed up my stomach before Saw 10, but it did not prepare me for what we'll talk about that later, but did not prepare me for Saw 10 straps. Rewatched Finding Nemo. Hot take. It's a good Pixar movie. Strays. Finally watched that. Very good. Yeah. Watched Strays. So Strays is such a funny movie because like I got invited to like an early screening back in like May. And then they delayed the movie after that early screening that I didn't go to. Riley and I were like, this just isn't a movie we really care to drive to go see. They delayed it like 2 months, like right after that screening. So I'm like, they probably got some bad feedback in that screening because they probably just re-edited a shit ton. Still awful. Just like not funny. But never expected to be that good. But I was like, I needed something easy to watch. I'm like, I'll just throw on Strays. I didn't love it. Also watched The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar, as well as The Swan, which is the second one. Haven't watched Ratcatcher or Poison, which are the other two yet. But really,
that
really
one released today. Poison.
Yeah, the last one released this morning. Probably, I don't know if it's out right this minute, but it comes out today. But yeah, I really enjoyed Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. It was a 4.5 for me. It's going to be it's about a dude who basically becomes a god at gambling by figuring out the system, and that's just kind of like literally me, who I want to be. So Henry Sugar, basically the same exact guy as me. Watched Dumb Money. I liked it a lot. Like I didn't love it, but I don't know. It wasn't. It had the potential to be super annoying, but it didn't feel that way for me. I really liked it. It made me feel exactly nostalgic to what it was like in 2021 or 2020 when that happened. And just all the rage I had. Like I was so mad back then at like Robin Hood and how like it just seemed like the big financial institutions were just like fucking everyone, and then rewatching the movie was like, God, it's just making me just as mad once again. Also, like the main guy, Deep Fucking Value, the Redditor, kind of crazy how he became like a global sensation, made millions of dollars, and was able to like snap into a private life and was never heard from again.
Fall
just like
off
that.
the face.
Like that
of the
never
earth.
happens nowadays. Like he was like, you know what? I've done what I need to do. Had my fame, got my millions. You're never gonna see my face here for me again. We haven't. So
I mean, that's the way to go.
Honestly, yeah.
He made a quick 50 mil, and he was like, "Fuck it, I'm leaving with my wife and kids, and that's it. Like, we're enjoying a quiet life."
Such a fun side of Paul Dano too. Like he's just got such crazy range. This looked like such a fun movie for him to be in. Like it's just a side you don't really see much of him at all. And then obviously The Thing, which we'll be talking about today, Cloverfield, which we'll be talking about on Friday's review, and then yesterday did a double feature in the theater of Saw 10 and The Creator. But that's what I've been watching.
And for me, quick, No One Will Save You as well. Enjoyed it more than I thought I would.
Is that a horror? Or is it like it's just a sci-fi?
It's
Sci-Fi
it's
horror,
definitely labeled as a horror, but like I didn't find it that frightening.
More of a
There was
thriller?
one jump scare that got me, I'll be honest. It was the
Got you.
like the little fridge jump bit. Or not jump scare, but
No,
like,
you know
what I
which
mean?
jump scare got me? Also crazy when she's running towards the front door and the front door gets kicked down and it just
That was
smacks
cool,
her.
man.
I'm like,
Yeah, it was
she's
cool.
dead. Like there's no like that kills the rock. But she
For
just
those of you at home, if George and Seth are both talking about different jump scares that got them, it is indeed a horror movie. George's like, it's not really a horror. And then you're both like, a jump scare got me. And for me and Cam type of people, it's absolutely a horror movie.
To be fair, though, I will usually get got by jump scares.
Yeah.
It's a weird one. Like, are they scary? Do you know what I mean?
They're just cheap. Yeah. And then I watched House at the End of the Street, which was an older
That's Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah, it's just not a good movie. I didn't like that. And then Evil Dead Rise. I was home for that weekend, and my younger sister asked me to pick a horror movie, so I picked Evil Dead Rise. And I prefaced it by saying it's not that scary. It's also just really gory. She was very scared. Rewatched Bodies with Victoria, which is just funny because I drafted that last week on our movies that we repeatedly watch with our significant other. Yeah. Harry Potter, Killed Order of the Phoenix, Half-Blood Prince, and
Is that your favorite one? Order of the Phoenix?
Yeah, favorite one, yeah.
It is interesting.
Yeah, that Deathly Hallows Part 2.
Okay.
But which I will watch soon. May, December, film festival last night, The Creator, which we'll talk about. Just great rewatch. I actually raised it to a 4.5. I really like that movie a lot. I think it's just a fun fucking horror movie. And then Cloverfield, and I think I mentioned The Thing already, but that's about it.
Are you going to give your quick thoughts on May, December, or are you just not going to touch on it until we review it later?
I was going to talk about it when we after The Creator. Yeah,
Gotcha.
I can talk about it right now.
No. Yeah, we can do it.
It'll
I
be
just
like
didn't know if you
2
weren't going to touch on
seconds.
it at all.
Yeah, I could touch on it. So yeah, May, December, that was the first, it was the opening night screening of the film festival last night. It was cool. Todd Haynes was there. He kind of introduced the movie, and then he brought out a bunch of his crew, one of his longtime producers, a few of his other producers, his casting director, I believe his composer was there.
Who's Todd Haynes again?
I have actually never seen a Todd Haynes movie until May, December. He did Carol. He did Dark Waters. He did Velvet Goldmine. So yeah, I definitely need to dive more into his filmography. I really liked May, December. Very subtle, very melodramatic. Basically, Natalie Portman plays a character who's interviewing Julianne Moore's character because she's going to be playing her in a movie. I won't go too deep into like what it is about Julianne Moore's character. I forget if they mentioned it in the trailer, so I just don't want to spoil anything. But something happened in Julianne Moore's life that like put her in the spotlight for a little bit, and now they're making a movie out of it. So Natalie Portman's character is interviewing her and basically spending like a week with her just to understand her mannerisms, understand her relationships. But yeah, I really enjoyed it. Really solid, dramatic piece. Natalie Portman. I have her at my number 2 right now for like the Oscar race. She's probably number 1 if I'm being honest with you.
Is she supporting or leading?
She's got to be lead. I'd imagine both of them are lead. They both have Natalie Portman has way more screen time, but they're both in it enough to be considered for lead. It doesn't matter. I don't think Julianne Moore was that great, like to have Oscar buzz. But Natalie Portman was just stunning, just fantastic. One of her best performances in a very long time, in my opinion. So
Better than Thor: Love and Thunder.
What?
Better than Thor: Love and Thunder.
Fair, yeah, right.
That's a crazy take.
Should have won an Oscar for that. But yeah, I'll leave it at that. Obviously, we'll dive into it a little more when it actually releases. But really liked it. Really solid opening film for the film festival. The experience was awesome. Listening to the director chat a little bit was cool. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. Seth, did you want to touch on? Wait, did you have a?
No, I'm going next week.
Next week. Okay. I forgot if you saw one this weekend. All right, so let's just jump right into it. Creator. One of the more anticipated movies on my end. Certainly after that first trailer dropped, I hadn't heard anything about it prior. Didn't even know John David Washington was in a Gareth Edwards directed science fiction film. So that trailer dropped, and the movie very quickly rose to the top of my most anticipated movies list. We'll start with Tyler. I believe he's the most recent on us that saw it. Tyler, give us your thoughts on The Creator.
Yeah, I got a lot of thoughts on The Creator. So overall, just like a really cool movie that I liked. I didn't love. I felt like I came away from it thinking it could have been a lot better if they would have just done a couple things a little differently. But I will say that Gareth Edwards, like, he is the truth. He has got the juice. Obviously, I'm a huge Rogue One advocate, and I believe, let's see. So he's also done Godzilla and some other smaller films.
2011, low budget sci-fi. Was it like Monster? Or
Monsters? Yep, Monsters.
Okay.
But Rogue One's the only other one I've seen of his, and I obviously love that. And I think he is a great director. I think the technical production of this movie was brilliant. The cinematography, the production design, set designs, costume designs, just the world that they built was so cool and interesting. And everything visually and audibly about this movie, because Hans Zimmer's score was incredible and the sound design was great. So everything from a technical aspect was one of my favorite movies I've seen in theaters in a while, especially considering the sub $100 million budget. Just incredible. They were able to achieve all that. I will say the world felt unique at first, and I had a hard time articulating this in my Letterboxd review, but just didn't feel like lived in. Like I couldn't really buy into the world being like a thing that's been happening in society for a long enough time. Like, it just something about it just didn't feel like they were able to build it enough for me to feel like this is like a proper world that's an actual thing happening in society. I thought and I know we're going to talk about it like at some point in this review, but I thought the casting department was a little bit of a miss here. I'm not a big John David Washington guy. I really just don't like him as an actor, especially like in a lead role. But I also think Allison Janney, who I think is a great actress, don't think she really had any business being in the role she was in. I really didn't really like her as like the general commander. I just couldn't buy into it at all. So I just thought the casting department missed a bit. And then like I feel like the first third of the movie built up this really interesting AI, artificial intelligence world. A lot of sociopolitical themes you could probably read into as well. But by the time the movie ended, I did like it from like an entertainment perspective. Like, I enjoyed the ending, but I just kind of was like, it just felt like kind of familiar, honestly, when it ended. Like, I feel like this, and a lot of sentiments similar on Twitter. People are like, the creator is going to be like the favorite sci-fi movie ever. People like haven't seen Blade Runner and like other like actual like sci-fi proper films. Cause I can see why people would love this, but it feels, I don't know. It just felt familiar. It just didn't feel like it was enough to stand out as a unique movie for me. But Hans Zimmer, I thought was awesome, because we mentioned it when this was released that Hans Zimmer was going to be the score. Kind of just like quietly happened to be like Hans Zimmer's score, but I thought it was quite good, especially towards the end when everything got super intense. But yeah, I'll leave it there. I give it a 6 out of 10. Definitely the middle, also just last thing is like the middle, like 45 minutes. I got quite bored during, to be honest. I was just like, this is kind of dragging out a bit, but I thought the final third was great. Oh, final thing, the little girl who plays Alfie, incredible. I thought she crushed it. Yeah. She was so good.
She was 7 years old when they filmed.
She was unironically like, and this isn't even saying like to slight Allison Janney or John David Washington. I'm saying purely like she was the best performance in the movie, and I think it was like not even close. Like, I thought she was so good. But yeah, 6 out of 10. Liked it. Wouldn't say I felt disappointed, because I'm never a big sci-fi guy, so I wasn't as hyped for this as you two were. But yeah, I had a good time with it.
Seth, the first of us to see it.
Yeah, so I was really excited for this originally, just because new IP, sci-fi. I don't know. I'll start with the negatives because I do have a bit more positive to say. I think the way this is really let down by its script, in my opinion. Like, I know we've all mentioned this, even George. Obviously, George liked it more than us, but George's take I actually quite liked. Your review is a little bit different in terms of what you appreciate about it, but I don't think it does anything new. The visuals are so good, and it really is an unquestionable like triumph in the industry. Especially at like 80 million budget, we never see that anymore. But I don't think I can overstate how damaging the script was at times for me, in that it just doesn't do anything. Nothing's explored when it was tried to. I think a lot of stuff was attempted about, when we, as mentioned earlier, when he was doing the Q&A after the screening, he actually mentioned one of the inspirations being Ex Machina, Alex Garland's, in terms of, what it means to be human, AI versus humanity. And whereas it was so well explored in a film like Ex Machina, nothing was said in this that hadn't been said before. And I do think it's quite hard with the AI thing because it's been used a lot. But like Tyler said, it felt too familiar. It felt dull. I was quite bored during the kind of. There was a point where I was like dozing off a bit for like 2 seconds during the middle because I was like, what's happening? I also just didn't love the cast, to be honest. I'm pretty similar with Tyler in the same vein that I just don't think the cast. Not that they're not good actors, because I like pretty much all of them individually. I just think they were all miscast, maybe apart from the little girl who was fucking 7 years old, which is crazy. But I do think at the same time, there were some sequences in this, especially, during the end, during the start, that really managed to, immerse me. I think it said in my review, like, into Gareth Edwards' like futuristic vision, which I think he's so good at as a science fiction director. And I think he shows a lot of promise. This is coming from someone who I haven't seen Rogue One. I haven't seen, which Godzilla film did he do? Like 2014, 2015?
Yeah.
But okay. I haven't seen that. I haven't seen Rogue One. I haven't seen Monsters. But judging from this, I think he's a very strong director. It's funny as well because when I left the screening, everyone around me was saying this is so much like Rogue One in a way that its direction is remarkable, but its script is the way that it lets it down and kind of drags it down slightly. But there were some sequences which literally blew my head off. And I think for an 80 million budget, it's so good. And also, final thing I say, the emotional beats never hit for me. I found it to be kind of emotionally devoid. I didn't really feel anything in the ending. But on contrary to Tyler, actually, I did actually quite like the world. And I did feel like the world was lived in. I feel like it was an organic process that had been accumulating over time. We kind of felt that. But yeah, like, I give it a 3 out of 5. I was quite disappointed. Not that it was bad, just because I was kind of really excited for this when I first saw the trailers. I just think it was very much beautifully directed, but really, really hindered by its lackluster script. So yeah, 3 out of 5 for me.
Yeah, I like I said in my TikTok review, I completely understand the criticisms and why everyone kind of leans more towards that 3 out of 5 or 3.5 out of 5 score. I completely agree. I don't think this movie does anything to progress that AI versus human narrative, and it certainly doesn't do anything to like move the science fiction genre forward, maybe in the way that some of us had hoped, especially after that trailer. I gave it a 4 out of 5, which I guess if you compare that to my expectations, maybe that's a bit of a letdown, but I still had such a blast with this movie. This is just one of the... I just love just being immersed in a new environment, and I think that's one thing this movie does just
an original
ridiculously well. Like, it just felt so brand new. And Tyler, I understand what you're saying, where like the world itself didn't necessarily feel like lived in. Like, I don't know how to elaborate that, but I understand what you're saying. Like, it didn't feel like they developed the world as well as they could have. But I think Gareth Edwards, just like Neil Blomkamp, and I'm going to plug those Neil Blomkamp short films that I've been watching lately, they both
the comparison is drawn quite a lot between the two.
Yeah, because they both just have like this very unique eye for like science fiction / I guess pre-apocalyptic worlds.
Yeah.
You know, they feel dirty, they feel raw. They really elevate like or at least for me, they really elevated my experience with this movie because the world itself just they took so much care of it, which I really, really enjoyed. And seeing it on the big screen, I was just enthralled. I was sitting in row C, staring up at the AMC Lincoln Square IMAX screen, and I was just like, this looks sick. I was like, this is just fantastic. But from a writing perspective, like I said, I absolutely understand the criticisms. I don't think our characters were necessarily developed well enough. This movie tried to give us moments of heart, moments of impactful emotion that I think were well written, but I don't think they had the impact that they should have, because the movie didn't build up these characters and these relationships as well as I had hoped for. But other than that, I obviously I've been beating to death the idea of this new created cinematic universe in my head. Just movies that are just very conceptually bold. They're beautiful to look at. There's clearly a lot of meticulous care that goes into this world, but they're all held back by a fairly lackluster and unoriginal script. I mentioned Pacific Rim is in that cinematic universe, Tron Legacy, Godzilla King of the Monsters, Oblivion. For me, I like that. I really enjoy that. Obviously, I talk about Pacific Rim quite often as being one of my favorites ever. I fucking love that movie. So I guess it really depends on how you come into this movie and what you get out of it and how you walk out of it. So I kind of got not what I expected. Obviously, I was fully prepared to just spam 5 stars on Letterboxd after watching this movie. But for what it was, I had a really good time, flaws and all. I could definitely see myself revisiting this one as like a, late night edible watch or something. It's a 4 out of 5 for me. It does sit inside my top 10, surprisingly, because like I've mentioned on the pod before, a big way I rate movies is, can I see myself rewatching them? So like, yeah, maybe Creed 3 and Barbie are objectively better films. I'm probably going to pick The Creator to watch over both of those 10 out of 10 times. So yeah, for me, it's a 4 out of 5. Had a really good time with it. Definitely on the lackluster side in terms of character development, progression of science fiction genres, the AI versus human narrative. But I had a great time with it. I really did. Like you guys said, some of the visuals were just fucking awe-inspiring. Some of the sound designs on the bombs, like the quiet shots, and then the bomb blew up, and then like you get the feel of like that backfire. It felt cool. It looked cool. Tyler, believe it or not, I know you were praising Hans Zimmer. That was like the first thing I said walking out of the theater. Like, that was a little lackluster for my boy.
Underwhelming. That's the first thing I said.
Not that it was bad by any means.
We expect.
Yeah,
so
it's not like as memorable as like his Dune score.
I said
like,
the same thing.
This felt like he was like, this was literally like a side project for him. Gareth Edwards approached him, and Hans Zimmer's like, "Yeah, I got 2 hours on a Saturday. Let me do this for you real quick."
Well, what's funny about Hans Zimmer's score is that what I should have mentioned is when I was watching, I forgot he did the score until like 45 minutes left, and I was like, "Oh shit, he did the score!" And I was like, "I don't remember hearing any score." I was like, I thought Hans Zimmer was doing this, but then like the final climax, I thought the score was really good.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay.
The final climax.
So to be fair, I really liked it in the climax, and I thought retroactively, I was like, the score is probably great the rest of the movie too, but I vividly remember sitting in my seat and I had like an epiphany light bulb moment, like 45 minutes left. I was like, isn't Hans Zimmer doing this score? I'm like, and then I was like listening, and 10 minutes went by. I'm like, there's just no score right now. I'm like, where's the score? And then like the big climactic ending happens. I was like, okay, this is like the Hans Zimmer. That
that was
not iconic for sure. I will never listen to any of these songs and be like, the creator. Like,
that's the thing. Like, I want to. Like, I'm whenever this score drops on Spotify, I'm listening to it through immediately. Like, I want to see what he did, because at times I felt like maybe he was a little underutilized, or maybe that was like Gareth Edwards' intention, where he wanted to suck all the sound out of it so that he can like make sure that like the audience members are focused on what they're watching as opposed to what they're listening to. But yeah, that was like the biggest thing walking out of the theater. I was like, not the most memorable Hans Zimmer score. During the credits at the end of the movie, Hans Zimmer's name came on the screen, and this guy behind me goes, "Oh my God, Hans Zimmer did the score, and I was like, fuck off, dude. Show some goddamn respect. I also I wanted to bring up Owen's tweet yesterday where he compared, what was the ship called? The Nimbus?
I know what you mean. That's
the big ship, the big bomb.
The ship that has the big fucking things.
Yeah, that
Nimbus.
one.
Nimbus.
I have no idea. Something with an N. But he basically said it's like a. I could easily just pull up his tweet, but I'm not going to. But he said it's like a more like intimidating Death Star.
I disagree.
I disagree with that, but I like where he's getting at, because like that machine was such a big part of this like story, obviously. And if they made it like look goofy or like just perform goofy actions, I don't think it would have like hit. But like the scenes where it's like flying over a landscape and it's like scanning and then people are like ducking away and crying, like Gareth Edwards did such a good job at like making it like really feel like this is the end of the world with this machine. Like if you get scanned, you're fucked.
I feel like a much better comparison is War of the Worlds. That's the vibe I got from it. Like scanning, because like you know that those were just tripods going around just zapping people. That's the vibe I got every time. It was like going around scanning. I was like, this is Spielberg's War of the World. I know it's a remake, but I've only seen Spielberg's. But the fun. So John David Washington, like, and I don't have the vitriol for him like Mark Ruffalo, I guess. So I'm not going to go too heavy into him, but. I don't think he's great at like carrying a movie for me personally, and he kind of has to for a lot of this, especially in the middle of this movie. It's really you're just sitting with him as he's trying to make this trek to he's really struggling between kind of what's right and wrong here. He's trying to do what he thinks is right. I don't think he's that strong as like a lead star. And then George, you brought up my tweet and said Tenet and Black Klansman, which I agree with you. I think he works in Tenet because he's not asked to carry the movie. He's more a vessel. He's literally like named the protagonist. He doesn't even get a name. So he's just meant to be a body that's carrying out the story. And I think he does good in that. Like same with Robert Pattinson. I love Robert Pattinson. Wouldn't say Tenet's the greatest acting performance he's ever done purely because he wasn't really asked to. That wasn't really the intent of the movie, was to let the stars shine as much as they did. I thought both of them did really good in it. Black Klansman as well. I think it's just a really great like ensemble cast. I didn't really feel like anyone was like carrying that movie or had like when the movie came out, he's the main cast member. But I feel like when you watch that movie, you don't think like there's like a John David Washington movie. I feel like it's kind of like Adam Driver, John David Washington,
That's
Jesse
fair.
Plemons.
No, I get what you're
like
saying.
Amsterdam, like, I think when he has to be more of a star, I just thought he was so bad.
No, I get what you're saying, especially with like Tenet and Black Klansman. Like he's never. Like maybe like even in like Malcolm and Marie, like he's not the sole lead of these movies. Like
he was better in this than he was in Amsterdam. I'll say that much.
I mean, yeah obviously, bro.
He was that.
But like Tenet, like he obviously had Robert Pattinson there to work off of. Black Klansman, you know, Adam Driver was like the shining light of that movie. So like I get what you're saying, where he can't carry a movie, but I still feel like saying that is such a knock because I do think he's a good actor. And I think the creator, I enjoyed his performance. I didn't see like there was no part of his performance, his line delivery or anything he was doing or saying where I was like, ooh, this was miscast. Like I enjoyed him as a casting here. He felt very, beaten down in this movie by like his past, his character's past. Obviously, I'm not talking about him now. I'm talking about his character. And I think he did such a good job at like showing that he's the best at what he does, but he also just lost his wife. So he doesn't want to be a part of this world anymore. So he puts on like that quiet, depressed demeanor really well. And then when he was recruited by, what was that woman's name that you just said? The one that you said,
Allison Janney.
Yeah, when he was recruited by her character, then he like flipped it to like this really badass guy, like no nonsense. So I think he's a great actor. I think he did a good job in this role. I get what you're saying. You know, he hasn't been given I think the creator is a proper opportunity to attempt to carry a film, but I'll also say because the script holds it back, maybe it wasn't the best opportunity to try and prove that he can carry a film. But I still think he's a very, I'm not going to say accomplished actor, but he's a very capable actor.
And that's fair. That's fair. But do you guys agree with me though that I didn't really like Allison Janney cast in this movie, even though I do like her.
I didn't like any. So her like Ralph Ineson, who was like a general or something, one with the really
he was not good.
He was
like the right hand man, right? Like the main guy.
I think he's such a great actor. Like he's really good in The Witch, in The Green Knight. I think his voice is so distinct. I think he really worked. I think he was so horribly miscast in this, and I think the same for her as well. Like I think they're really good actors. Like everyone in this was a good actor, but I just think some of the casting choices were really wrong in my eyes.
Went for. And I don't know, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, for God, what's her fucking name? Allison what?
Jenny?
Yeah.
Allison Jenny. I feel like they tried to go for a very Sigourney Weaver in Avatar type role there.
Makes sense. Yeah, that's fine.
But you know what they pulled off though to me? Wreck-It Ralph in the game, Jane Lynch, where she's like, "Come on, maggots, we gotta defeat it." That's exactly what I was saying the whole time. I was like, yeah, and I think you're exactly right. They were going for like a more Sigourney Weaver badass, and what they ended up getting.
It just didn't. Yeah, it came off very.
I never believed her to be like a general who rose the ranks of military command as some like harsh, like hardcore military mastermind.
We'll go on to this, Tyler, but it's funny you say that because obviously we'll go on to this again. But the Saw X ending, that's the vibes I had from that in terms of the main woman in that. Obviously, we won't go into it, but that's the vibes I had.
We'll get to that in Saw X because I actually don't really know exactly what you're talking about. But last thing I want to touch on about John David Washington, because I'm lower on him than George, but I won't say he's like a bad actor, but I thought the girl was so good, and the final scenes of this movie like require such emotional connection between the two that it was giving me flashbacks.
Don't say that was a bad scene.
No, I didn't think he was great. And
okay.
It reminded me of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Like the little girl actor like sees Leonardo DiCaprio and she's like, "You are so unprofessional. You suck." Like I pictured like that little girl as like the Alfie who's like acting her heart out, and then like she's like, "You're giving me nothing. Like I'm acting at a 10 out of 10. Like you got to be matching my level." Because I don't know. I thought the scene was good for like entertainment value, but that's what I mean when I say it just felt so familiar, because I feel like the ending was just very much like, it's like it's very typical ending.
There's one thing that I think would have made this movie like significantly more impactful, and it would have just hit emotionally way more. So for the first like half, and now this is a little bit of a spoiler, so if you haven't seen it, I guess just skip ahead like 5 minutes. Not that big of a spoiler. But it could be, depending on how you look at it. But we find out that his deceased wife, or not deceased wife, is Nirmata. I thought it was the kid the entire time. I thought that's where they were going.
Like I think that was the point, though, isn't it?
Yeah, like from the first time she puts her hands together and she turns off all the electricity, I'm like, oh, like she's God. Like that's who he is trying to look for, but he doesn't know that she's right there. So I think that would have been significantly more emotional, especially down the line, finding out that the kid is essentially a copy of his actual kid that he was supposed to have with his wife. But yeah, I was like the entire time, I'm like, this kid is God. Like that's God right there. I'm staring at God, and it's really cool. And then they like pulled this curveball, and I feel like they How I Met Your Mothered us in a way where like the mother is just like in a coma. like we're spending this whole movie trying to find her, and it's going to be like this really cool embrace when they find each other. Just like How I Met Your Mother. We spend 9 seasons like, oh, who's the mother? And then
have you spoiled the whole show for me?
Have you not? Crazy. I don't care. Whatever. That's on you. That show's been out for 20 years.
I've seen like 3 episodes of it, man.
You would hate it.
I like Friends.
Yeah, fair.
The kid also just like reminded me a lot of like 11 from Stranger Things, like very similar vibes. Can kind of control stuff with their mind, not quite at the full level of their powers yet. Also, one thing I just want to mention is I've seen people review this movie saying it felt weirdly pro AI, which when you read the movie at surface level, definitely agree. Like basically the movie's kind of
for sure
sticking up for AI. So like for watching the movie and absorbing it without thinking deeper, very pro AI, which is like kind of weird. I can get why people get that rubbed the wrong way, but I'm like, for me, it's like pretty clearly like supposed to be symbolic, and you read more into it. It's not AI like itself. Is what people have read into it saying it's like a 9/11 type movie, kind of like similar to The Happening, where it's and out basically, and they kind of mentioned it early on, which I thought was like where it was really in your face. There's like a socio-political message when they said when like the news station at the very beginning was like, oh, we're not against the people of New Asia, we're just against like the AI there. So it's kind of like saying like, oh, like America goes into like Iran and Iraq and just like ruins entire countries. It was like, oh, we're not against the Iran people and Iraq people were just against people that did the bad stuff. And I felt like that was a very big parallel for me. That was interesting. Just kind of like more about war in general. And I don't think it's necessarily trying to say that AI is a great thing that we need to stick up for. Very interesting time for the movie to come out though, with like AI taking over stuff, with, obviously the writer's strike that was very heavily involved with AI.
Yeah. And then one other thing, this is a story I think would have benefited without a time jump personally. And I don't know how you guys feel about this. Like I would have loved to see like the immediate aftermath. Like the movie opens and you see this in the trailer as well. And it's like 10 years ago today, the artificial intelligence, that we made to protect us detonated a nuclear warhead in Los Angeles. I would have loved to see the immediate impact of that in like the AI versus human race, the cleanup of Los Angeles, I guess, like because John David Washington's character mentioned that he lost his entire family in that explosion. So I would have loved to see like his immediate reaction, the world's immediate reaction to like AI taking over, I guess. I feel like a 10-year time jump here just kind of removes you a little bit from like the gravity of the situation. Because like 10 years is a long time. That's like how have you not fixed this shit by now kind of long time.
I think that's kind of what they're going for, isn't it? Like it's the norm in society, and that's kind of the way that they're headed in terms of it was the norm, and you're kind of adapting to that. I know what you mean, though. I think it would have been fun to see the initial impact and everyone kind of freaking out.
And again, I'm like going right back to like Neil Blomkamp and District 9. Like that's like an immediate thing. Like aliens come in, blah blah blah. You're kind of seeing it like firsthand on how people are reacting to that shit.
Have you seen District 9, Tyler?
Yeah, long time ago though. Like that was I think when I worked at a movie theater, and I saw it like in theaters when it came out. So movie. Long time ago. But yeah, like I think George, what you mentioned is kind of probably what the missing key is for me, where I said like it didn't feel lived in. I think that a little more of that before the time jump might have been what I was kind of looking for to really solidify
just like
this world
something, because like obviously he built a beautiful world. This movie's awesome to look at. There's no denying that.
Just even the opening like reaction to it. That sort of thing.
Yeah, but it's like it doesn't feel. It feels very built. It doesn't feel natural, I guess, is what we're trying to say. But we could wrap up our creator review there. I gave it a 4 out of 5. Currently, I believe, sitting at my number 9 spot of the 10, actually. I think I have May December slightly above it. I have to check my rankings. I already forgot. Seth and Tyler, both at a 3 out of 5. Cam didn't watch it, right? Do we know what Cam gave it?
I don't think so.
I don't believe you watched it. Okay, well, I'm going to kick it over to you two. I obviously did not see Saw 10, so you guys can take it away with a little bit of Saw chatter.
Do you want to kind of run through I'll take it away. So I'll kind of run through what Saw 10's about. So actually, maybe you
are the Saw guy now, Tyler. The resident Saw guy.
Is this between true. Saw 1 and 2 or 2 and 3?
Yes, 1 and 2.
Okay, so this takes place
between...
What?
What?
Yes.
So this is like it brings it really back to the roots of the franchise. This is like old school Saw.
Oh, I did not know that.
So this movie takes
That's why I think you'd enjoy it.
Yeah. No, it's also the longest movie of the franchise. So it's between Saw 1 and 2. And basically the synopsis of this movie, just kind of getting into it without going into spoilers, is this is when obviously John Kramer has terminal brain cancer and he's trying to figure out a solution. Obviously we see in Saw 3 is when he kidnaps the doctors to make them do the surgery on him. But what we kind of see in Saw 10 is that before this, he had another opportunity to try and get rid of this brain cancer through this very experimental surgery / drug cocktail that was being released. That was basically able to like turn on and turn off certain cells and was able to heal all these world biggest diseases and problems. But quickly, with the big behemoth that big pharma is and big medical is, when someone's out there creating a cure for all the biggest diseases in the world, they're quickly going to want to nip that in the bud because that's their cash cow. That's how they make billions, maybe even trillions of dollars in industry, is just trying to treat people's cancers, treat people's biggest issues. So the guy has to go into hiding. John Kramer, through a guy at a support group at a cancer support group. This guy's like, hey, like he finds him a couple months later who's like doesn't have cancer anymore. He's completely good. He had pancreatic terminal cancer, and John Kramer's like, how the hell are you better from cancer? And he's like, well, like this very experimental guy. He has this kind of new method, but it's underground because the drug companies are trying to take him down. I have his contact. Here you go. So then John Kramer gets in contact with them, finds out that they're in Mexico, and this kind of sets the whole thing in motion as John Kramer goes to get this experimental surgery and drug cocktail done to get rid of his brain cancer. This movie's about 2 hours long, but it's by far the most character driven. Like there's probably a good 40 minutes, probably, maybe even longer in the beginning. That's purely just like a drama, almost a man that's dying of cancer, trying to seek out a solution, going to Mexico, traveling. A lot of touching moments that really humanize him, where he finds a kid with a broken bicycle and he helps fix the wheel. Like, really just a very interesting character study that we're not used to in the Saw franchise, especially since like Saw 1, that kind of really gives some more background. But I think by far this is the most character-driven character study of both John Kramer and Amanda as well, because obviously she's back because it's between Saw 1 and Saw 2. So that kind of sets the stage. It's John Kramer going, and I don't know if this gets into spoilers because it's kind of what like the movie's about. Basically, they scam him, and it was what they do. And this isn't a spoiler. This is kind of what, I mean, don't they?
Yeah.
Is that a spoiler?
Well, did you see the trailer? It's kind of like, well, I mean, okay,
No,
to be fair, if it's a Saw movie, there's going to be something that happens where he's going to have to get some justice for it. But
I guess so. Yeah, I guess so.
yes, and I mean, if
See
you
what
really,
people like being in the comments, just being like, "I'm literally just about to watch
this."
this."
Literally Batman.
no. So the last thing I'll say before we get into like our review, just to set the stage, is basically he realizes he gets scammed. They cheat him out of money, and Jigsaw doesn't like that when people fuck with other people's livelihood, people who are dying of cancer and looking for hope and one last opportunity, and they scam them out of money. So with that, Seth, we'll turn over to you. What are kind of your initial takeaways and what reviews?
Sorry. Well, one thing from me, you just saying like he goes to like Mexico to like seek out this like weird place to like cure. That sounds like Doctor Strange when he goes to Carmitage to like cure his hands. It's like it's like a complete whim.
Fair. And I mean that happened by Scott Derrickson, is also a horror director,
true.
so the tie-ins are there. Yeah.
They did that. That's what on Twitter earlier made me laugh. They did that thing when they go to Mexico. Did you see it, like with the color saturation? What they do in like every film?
Oh, it's like yellow. Is
They
it
just,
orange
like-
or yellow or something?
Yeah.
It's like that's
it's
got to be the
ridiculous.
funniest
Like,
thing.
Guys, it's sunny
so
and hot in
ridiculous.
Mexico. We'll let you know that by turning on this filter that
It's
like basically
crazy.
the Narcos filter, if I call it, because that whole show is just like orange and yellow hues.
It's ridiculous, man. Yeah, so I liked it. I think this is probably one of the only Saw films I have above a 2.5 are obviously Saw 1, Saw 2, Saw 6, and this one. I haven't watched some of them in a long time though, so I will say that, well, other than the first one and this one, but I thought it was good. I think it's a, I mentioned in my review, it's a good little concoction, good little mix of like dramatic and emotional beats in the first kind of half, where we see John Kramer's like human side and we go through his path, and it's surprisingly emotional at points, but then it really pulls you back in to the foundations of the Saw franchise and really brings you back to day one with just some really just squirming, juicy traps that actually, there was like one or two, and I texted Tyler this last night, that actually made me feel like, what the fuck? It made me feel a bit uneasy. And so, do you know when I told you before that I had a story about this?
Yeah, this is what the story was about.
It's not even a good story, but like, this is bear in mind, this is an overreaction, right?
Were you stuck in a Saw trap?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. So when I got in the cinema, there was, I'm not going to say what Saw, because I think the big thing about Saw is you don't want to know what the traps are. It's not the eyeball. The eyeball trap comes in early. They get out of the way early. It's
Also, just quick note, love that, because that's the poster, that's the trailer, the eyeball trap, that's everything they're doing.
I was worried about that.
And it's just like a quick in the beginning, barely even a part of the movie, and I love that. Like,
it's not a part of the movie
anything.
at all.
Yeah.
I was really glad. I thought that would be like the staple trap, but it's definitely not. So there's one trap, probably the first one that comes up, that like made me feel uneasy, and there was this woman like at the end of the row, and I literally heard her say, "I'm going to be sick," and she actually had to run out. And this sounds like I'm like marketing the film, do you know what I mean? But that's actually happened. Like she was like she literally got up and ran out from like the bottom of the fucking cinema screening, and I was like, Jesus Christ, like why are you over here to run out? And then there's a trap that comes after that, Tyler. You know which one I mean. We'll say some good spoilers because I think traps are a big part for Saw fans.
Yeah,
one that involves a head. And I was like, Jesus Christ, like, that made me feel a bit uneasy. And I think that's the great thing about the Saw film, is that we've kind of lost that, because it went back to the basics with John Kramer's story, who I really like and I always really liked as a character. We had some real originality with the traps. We had some fun moments, we had some scary moments, not scary, but like cringe moments, I guess. I think that's why it succeeded. Do I think it's a great film? No. So I don't have it that highly. I rate it a 3 out of 5. So it's certainly not high. Well, comparatively to the recent Saw films, it actually is. But I don't know. I think it's I think they did what they had to do here. I think it's to have even a 10th film in a franchise be good in any way is fucking rare. Let's be honest. I have to see like Fast X this year. But yeah, I thought it was 3 out of 5 for me. A good mix of surprisingly emotional beats and sadistic carnage, which is exactly what we wanted and expected. And I think Saw fans, if you're a big Saw fan, obviously you've probably seen it already, but if not, go and see it because you'll probably really like it. So yeah, 3 out of 5 for me.
Yeah, I really liked it. I gave it a 4-star, which for me, I'm similar to Seth. I only have 3 Saw movies above a 3-star. Saw 3 out of 3-star, and then Saw original Saw and Saw 10. So bookending the franchise at 4 stars. Other than that, not a huge fan of the series. Although it doesn't get too low for me. I think Jigsaw is my least favorite, but there's a lot of 2 and 2.5, so it never really dives to like the really shit tier for me. But I'm really happy for Tobin Bell on this because I feel like they finally gave him an opportunity to actually show some true range. He's obviously been great in other Saw movies, but they gave him like I mentioned before, like full like 40, 50 minutes of just pure dramatic acting that I thought I did not expect him to have that kind of acting chops. So really enjoyed that.
I really like him. Yeah, I really like his presence. I really enjoy it.
He crushed it in this movie. The thing that I think really does well about this for regrounding the franchise is you have to, it's a weird way to put it, but you almost have to earn the traps. Like Saw 3D is the biggest,
I agree,
biggest offender of this, where it was just trap in Saw 3D, and it was like crazy, wildest things ever. This one, like the traps are disgusting, but you kind of have to earn them. Like they're really like there's the eyeball trap, like we mentioned in the beginning, but other than that, you don't get to the first trap until like maybe an hour 20 in, something like that. Like, and you really have to earn them and sit with them, and that makes them just so much harder to stomach. You mentioned a woman got sick in your screening. I was close. There was a fight or flight moment for me, and we'll get into spoilers when we talk about the traps. There was a legit fight or flight moment for me, which it was like 3 p.m. when I saw it, and I hadn't eaten anything that day, but I don't think that was the reason. I think genuinely just because the trap was gross. But I didn't have like a soda or snacks or anything in the theater. But there was a moment where my palms are sweating. I was feeling lightheaded. I almost got a little dizzy. I legitimately had a fight or flight moment where I was like, I might have to dip out of this for a second. Like, I'm feeling not good right now. Because when
I want to know which one it was.
We'll get there. Because when you watch a Saw movie or any gruesome movie at home, it's easy to remove you can kind of look away. The volume, even if you have your volume loud, it's never movie theater volume. So even if you're in a movie theater, if you have to like avert your eyes, you're still getting the loud ass speakers pumping the sound, and the sound design's obviously disgustingly great. So yeah, it was a lot for me, but I made it through, soldiered on, mainly because of just peer pressure. I was like, I'm not going to let these people think I'm bitch made for leaving right now. So, because there was one other person who left at one point. I was like, I wonder if they went and got sick because they kind of just.
How many people were in your screening? Was it like a really busy one?
It was like a half full theater, so not super busy, not super empty. But yeah, I was like, I can't let these people think I'm bitch made. So yeah, with that, I give it a 7.7 out of 10, which is like barely under the first Saw for me. And people have been saying that it's their favorite Saw in the Saw movie ever in the franchise. I can see why. Like I don't.
Where does it?
It's number 2 for me. Number 2, which is where I was expecting it to be. But
either 2 or 3 for me, maybe 3. I think. Yeah, so it's pretty high.
Yeah, so we'll get into spoilers now. So
George, don't listen to this.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm gonna take my headphones off. Do you
I actually don't want
just
to
like
listen.
hit a wave when you're done.
when the spoilers thing come off, you'll know. So we'll pick up from my synopsis where I left off. He was scammed. Basically, he finds out that this company takes, which honestly I was confused about because they didn't. Maybe I just missed it briefly. I don't remember them saying like there's a huge money exchange he was paying them. So I guess I kind of missed the part where he had to give him $250,000. But basically, they kind of just travel around like a circus almost, where they just come into town, get a couple cancer patients, have them pay them, $250,000 to $500,000 to cure their cancer. Don't actually do any surgery on them. Kind of, with John Kramer, they basically did his head surgery. And they said like, don't take off your bandage for like 3 weeks. It's very sensitive. It's an antibacterial wrap. You don't want to touch it. Obviously by the time he finds out after 3 weeks, their plan is to be, like a circus. They're out of town. They're in the next town. They're gone. You'll never hear from them. They're safe. So they thought. And basically what he realized, because he was awake-ish during the surgery, is he was watching a screen that was supposed to be like them, doing his head surgery.
On his brain and stuff, yeah.
And he meets a woman, I can't remember her name, maybe Gabriella, something like that.
Gabriella. Yeah.
Who who he has a nice intimate connection with at the kind of hotel retreat area where the whole surgery takes place. And he's like, she was a really nice girl. Like, and he was really thankful for his cancer being cured because he left and he took all these crazy drug cocktails that made him feel better in the short term. So he's like, you know what? Like I'm really thankful for her. Really liked her. I'm going to travel back there. They kind of kidnapped him almost because like they mentioned, and like I mentioned the synopsis, they're kind of a medical industry that's under fire right now because big pharma is trying to get after them. So they kind of had to blindfold him so he didn't know where he was going. And he kind of knew from context clues, like, oh, there's like a cell tower there, mountains there. He kind of figured out where it was. So he goes back and he wanted to gift her some tequila. And when he goes back, that's when he realizes that they're gone. This whole thing's been trashed. He goes into their operating room and realizes that there was never any head surgery. It was just a video. Yep. Takes off his bandage. It was just a video they were playing. And he realizes that basically all of them were just scam artists that are taking people's money. I think he saw like a ledger or something of all the people he took money from. So then this is kind of what sets the movie in motion. He's going to go and act as revenge, kidnap the 4 or 5 people involved, like the driver from the airport, the anesthesiologist, the surgeon, the woman who's kind of the head of it all. Gabriella as well. who initially was someone who he was really close to, and he basically is going to kidnap him, make him go through all the traps to suffer. And that's where we get to kind of the end of the movie, which is all the traps happening, which is kind of bang, bang, bang. They all happen. I guess we'll quickly touch on the eyeball one just to get it out of the way. So, which I never knew because from the poster, I couldn't tell. I was like, are those glass tubes that are like doing something to his eye? I didn't know it was like a vacuum thing. That was gnarly, but it was quick. And almost it didn't really get me. It didn't really make me queasy. Like the finger snapping almost looked too fake to where I was like,
yeah, it didn't work on me at all.
It didn't make me cringe.
I kind of like it though, because there was a worry, which we mentioned earlier, that this would be like the poster trap. I mean, it was like, the staple in the film. And I was really worried about it, but this is nothing. This happens like, so basically he's in the hospital and he sees this guy who's like stealing money out of a patient's purse when she's asleep or whatever. And then he imagines himself or, doing this eyeball trap towards him. And then he sees him, the guy puts the money back and he's like, good decision. John Kramer says like, good decision. So this really is nothing. And this lasts like 2 minutes, if that, but it didn't really have an impact on me. I thought it was cool. I really like the shooting style of it, but I'm just really glad that this wasn't used as like this staple trap and that they had so much to offer, because I think that was a really good decision from them. And I also think it works in the marketing. You know what I mean? It's a good little. I really like the poster for it and stuff like that. But as far as the trap itself, didn't really have an impact. So it was cool, but finger snapping thing, I was like, yeah, it doesn't look great. Do you know what I mean? So probably I don't think they put too much focus into that, compared to the the later ones, which is good.
Right, which also makes sense because it was just a vision. And I did really like, you touched on it, the shooting style and the direction of this whole thing in general by Kevin Grutert. I really enjoyed like that whole scene of the eyeball trap was super sick. There were so many like 360 camera like pans, like going in circles, like quick cuts. Like it felt very much like the closest I've felt to James Wan's directing style in the series in a while. Yeah. Like, I know this guy's directed a couple of other ones, which actually like Saw 6, low key, like who this guy also directed, was kind of like a shining light. It's still 2.5 for me, but compared to like 3, 4, and 5, I was like, oh, this feels like a little bit fresh. So I think this for Saw direction, Kevin Grutert, I think is quite good. But yeah, so the traps, let's get into it. So the first trap is the bone marrow trap. Yeah, that's the one that got me the worst. I was really queasy during that.
It's when she's like
diabolical.
She ties the bell. Wait, is the leg one, isn't it? The first one.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the first
she
one.
Ties the belt around the top of her leg, around her thigh, and then she's got like this like chain thing, where it's like it's like a saw kind of thing, and John Kramer says it's like insanely sharp, whatever. She's like that, like pulling her hands back and forth, but it's just slowly going through. That was like, it's because of the pressure on her leg, and when the leg kind of comes off, I was like, Jesus, we're going there for this one.
The practical effects were great.
They were really, really good. They were the best I've seen from a Saw in a while. That was the moment when that woman ran out, and I was like, yeah, fair enough. That's fucking weird. So the other one we'll go into actually maybe feel a bit uneasy, but like even me, who's watched endless, gore films, horrors, whatever, I was like, okay, this is fucking cool. So I think there's a difference as well, like you say, in when it's good practically, when it looks realistic, and then when it's just like, yeah, that looks so fucking stupid. Do you know what I mean? And it looked real. So yeah, that was the first one. I really, really liked that one. I thought it was shot really well. was interesting.
Because actually, we forgot one other trap. So it was like taxi driver. The whole like bomb in the arms that he had to like cut out.
Oh,
That
yeah.
one. So basically, he had to like cut out these.
That made me feel uneasy as well. Too.
Yeah, no, like
weird.
the practical effects were great in this,
Yeah.
which I feel like some of the older Saw films, which they're older, so you can't fault them too much. Some of them are just such crazy, ludicrous traps that are so wild
It's just
that
too
almost
much.
yeah, it's too much. Where you're like, that didn't really get me because it just felt so. But whereas this is like
It
very
feels
intimate.
cartoonish in a way.
Yeah,
Intimate's a word for it because he's
Mhm.
like he's stuck in this kind of bomb thing, and he has to get what are the things in his arms again? He has to basically cut his arms off and pull these things.
Yeah,
out.
because he has a bomb attached to both of his forearms, and like the wires are like the type of wire that like the type of knife he gives them just wouldn't be able to cut through.
Yeah, so he has to like get his arms, and he's like chopping his arms up, but it's really close, like really intimate, as you say, and really detailed to the point where I was like that. That was actually, I would probably say that got me a little bit more than the leg one. Thinking about it, it was just so close up all the time, like the noises and stuff.
I think
that was really cool. Actually,
I think the Saw franchise, if it keeps going, I think we might see that guy again because he survives, and John's like, "You're going to be okay," and like I feel like it's kind of like a new Amanda. Like that guy's going to be a new follower.
Potentially, yeah, potentially.
But the leg one was directed so well because the sound editing was just gruesome. But like every time she would like kind of rip the saw through, like the camera would just like tilt super hardcore. Like each time she was kind of sawing through, and just the way the camera was working in harmony with what was happening, I was like, this is a lot. And that 10-minute sequence, even for people who have a tough stomach, which I like to think I do, is such an intense 10-minute sequence because you go from her cutting off her leg, which she completely saws through her leg, incredible practical effects, to then having to like inject her thigh bone with a contraption that sucks out bone marrow.
That was horrible.
That's then dripping bone marrow onto a plate. Yeah. And then from that, she fails to get enough in time. Yeah,
like blood, white into this
disgusting
little
bone
cup
marrow.
thing. It was horrible.
Goes from that, which she fails to do in time, to her head being cut off, decapitated.
Really, it was like the way she falls, the way the head comes off.
Everything was so insanely real. And then immediately from that, you go to the main woman cutting this woman open, taking all of her intestines out,
and use it as a
rope. So that 10-minute sequence was like some of the most intense things I've seen, just because it was just nonstop, like cut off the leg, bone marrow, head off, intestines out. I was like, holy shit, they're going all out.
So like we know how horror films, Terrified did the same marketing tactic where, I don't know if you saw, I actually just posted a video about this. They were handing out like vomit bags in like some of the US and some schools. I get it, man. Like it's good marketing. You know what I mean? People, and there was articles were saying like they couldn't finish the film. Of course, we know that is marketing and that's what gets people in the seats. And they did it with Terrifier and it worked, and it will work with this. But that sequence, if you are squeamish, I mean, why the fuck are you going to a Saw film in general? But I feel like that's why people go sometimes, though. Do you know what I mean? It's like that's why.
Yeah, it's like a roller coaster if you're afraid of heights. You kind of like to test.
Yeah, exactly. And that the 10-minute sequence going from A to B and then ending with someone literally holding intestines and using them as rope even made me feel a bit sick. And that's someone who's so used to it by now. So I do kind of get why people, the reaction to this film, because it is more gruesome, because it's more realistic, more intimate, more personal than previous Saw films. And it's not realistic. Look, Saw films are never realistic, but like you said, with the Saw 3 and 4, they were going to the point where it was cartoonish violence. It was ridiculous. But with this one, they really hone in on bringing it back to the basics. Like in the first Saw, where he cuts his leg off. It's so intimate, personal. So I do kind of get it, but they marketed this film so well in general. That's what they do. And horror film is just really good at it.
And I feel like the big thing with every other Saw film is like there's a trap, then you kind of get some plot, then a trap, then plot. Whereas this is like you get so much plot that it's like that's why like I think the fight or flight like was triggered in me, because I was like, this was the first one and we have like 3 more to go and it's going to be back to back to back to back. And I was like, we're about like buckle in because there's going to be an insane ending to the movie, which it was. So that trap ends, and I'll let you talk about this next one because this is the one that got you more, because the leg one was the one that made me squeamish. This one kind of was the one that affected you the most.
Yeah. So what is he in now? So he's in apparatus, and he basically has to get some of his brain and put it in like a cup, whatever, to stop it, whatever it is.
Yeah, he had to get a certain weight of his brain cut off.
Certain weight of his brain. Yeah. And it's like, so he first gets this kind of drill, and he's like, when you see a spy film or a heist film, they have like a laser and they cut round a window like with a laser and makes like a perfect circle and they just pop through it. It was like they did that. He did that with his head. and then he like goes into his brain, and he's like picking at his brain and grabbing out like a little lump, and it's so like realistic in the way that it is, and he's like picking out a little bit of his brain and just like plopping it in this cup. And I was like, Jesus, that makes me feel weird. Like I was just kind of thinking about the feeling of someone in your head, like literally in your head, not metaphorically. And it was the way he did it, where he kind of just has this perfect circle that pops off, and then he's just like in there with like a fork or something, you know, whatever it was, and just grabbing a little bit of it out. And I thought that was like again really cool and something new and something refreshing. And I really enjoyed it. I think the traps were a really successful part for that reason. So
and I love like the thing, like his kind of theme he's going for with the trap was like, you guys act like you're surgeons, but you're not. I'm going to make you do some surgeon shit. And clearly this guy, he was just like a vet, and he doesn't know what the hell he's doing for brain surgery. So he's like, when he starts to cut open his scalp, it's so brutal. Like he's like just like stabbing himself with like the saw. Clearly a man
trying to get a little bit. Trying to get a little bit of brain, and then when it's like when he puts it down, the camera goes really close to this little like cup where it's little like weighing scale, and it's just this tiny bit of brain. And it's just like it's so full on. I didn't really expect it going into it, but they were definitely my most enjoyable bits from the film, or those sequences, which is kind of weird to think about. But yeah,
and there was a cool callback in that one earlier in the movie when he first gets to Mexico and he sees that like temple, and the driver's like, you know, every tourist makes you come here. It's kind of weird. This is where people's hearts get ripped out. And he kind of uses that same exact temple look on a head for when he fails a trap. It's like a heater wires in there, and it shuts in on him. I was like, you know, that's pretty cool. Like that's why I thought like this movie cared more than a lot of the other Saw movies. Like they tried to make this an actual like competent movie as opposed to just like trap. Because like I was like, oh, that was a fun little bit. The next one, the next trap. So this is when this is Gabriella, the woman he kind of falls for, which we're just kind of using, or not he fall. Well, yeah, he kind of does fall for her. And this is where we get some interesting or some good plot development with Amanda's character, who obviously John Kramer initially put in a trap because she was abusing heroin or some intense drug. And Gabriella is kind of that same thing. She's a heavy drug addict. And you kind of realize she was probably only pulled into this scam because she needed money for drugs. And one of the other guys was her drug dealer. So Amanda was really sympathetic to her. She's like, you know, John, which it is a moral gray area. John thinks drug addicts are wasting their lives, which, you know, you can see why he might think that. And then Amanda's from an opposite perspective, kind of saying drug addiction is like not as black and white as you think it is. You can't just, like a lot of people fall into these circumstances. So it's a really interesting character development. You kind of get an idea of the difference between Amanda and Jigsaw, because they obviously have differences in the other Saw movies of how they go about things. So kind of seeing their philosophy play out. Amanda definitely feels empathetic for her. She kind of tries to throw her a bone. Initially, Gabriella was supposed to be the next trap, but Amanda pushed it off and made the guy do the brain surgery Seth was talking about. So Amanda felt very sympathetic for this woman. Her trap was she got shackled one arm and one leg, chained up in the air, and a crazy radiation machine that like used to treat cancer just blasted on her.
Literally blasted in her face, and she's like melting. I'm like, Jesus Christ. I like that though, because again, it goes back to this like, it's so intimate. It's not like, you know, you're getting someone that's just like blowing her head off, or the usual shit we used to see, where it's just so over the top, because it was like her face is just slowly like melting, and it's really intense. Yeah, I like this idea for trap. And then obviously she has to like, she's in shackles with like her wrist and her foot, and just like break the fuck out of her foot to make sure she gets through it. And it was cool, man. I really like this bit. I did.
One thing I think is funny is she started with her arm, and then like the main woman's like, oh, you should start with your legs. You should swing out of the way of the radioactive machine, which that's also a funny comedic bit, because she does swing out of the way, and then like the machine just moves, which I was like, that was funny. But the thing is, like, if she would have started with her hand, because her leg would have still been tied up, she would have just like slopped down on the concrete, like fell, and probably would have just died. I was like, is that like a plot hole in this trap? Because like, how would she even, like, if she broke her hand off?
She wasn't that high, was she?
Yeah, because she does fall again she does fall after she breaks her hand at the end.
You'd be fucked though, because she would literally, if she'd gone that way and gone straight down, imagine if the radiation machine went down as well, right on her face, and then she's having to like do sit-ups to
true. Yeah, so that was smart. That was a smart move. But that trap was a lot less intense to watch than the other two. Like it wasn't as gruesome or anything. But
it was just basically her melting.
But she does survive the trap. She gets out of it. I mean, she survives temporarily, but with that much radiation, who knows how long her life is going to be?
How she's doing now.
Yeah, she might have cancers in every part of her body at this point. And this is where the final woman is left, the main CEO of the company, who's kind of pulling off the scam. And he kind of leaves the final trap for her. But they kind of pull the rug out from under you.
Forgot about the guy. We forgot to mention the guy coming in. So
the guy, you go ahead.
So John Kramer saw him at the hospital when he was about to get his treatment. And he said he had just
or something. Yeah.
I can't remember what it was now. A kidney? Was it kidney?
I thought it was thyroid. So I think it's like
thyroid. Yeah, that's it. And he said he just had thyroid, for thyroid cancer, whatever. And then he basically turns up at the what's the word? Like what would you call it?
Like warehouse?
Warehouse? Yeah, warehouse. Yeah. He basically turns up, goes upstairs, and he basically is coming to, what we think is to get his money back, because he also, what we think, realized that it was a scam, comes to get his 250 grand back, whatever. And then basically he goes inside, he gets captured by John Kramer and Abby, and then and then basically the whole time he's like disputing whatever, and then we kind of find out that this whole time he's basically he's also in on it, and he's like the boyfriend, I guess, the partner of the main woman, and then what happens then? So they set up the trap for her, don't they?
Yeah, so kind of basically what at this point she's like, is he like her husband or something, or just partner?
I don't think so. I think it was like a partner, but she was clearly like using him. It was like a case. It was a very one-sided kind of thing.
Yeah, it was like an intimate relationship in terms of like intimate, because she like kind of plays on that to make him more like loyal to her or whatever. But
exactly, yeah.
So at this point, he kind of is like, I'm done with this. Pulls a gun on them. He's like, we're shutting this down, John Kramer. Like, and kind of reveals like he was in on it. He's like, go release my wife, or I'm going to kill you too. Or not wife, whatever. I keep thinking that partner, partner. So then
I can't remember.
So then basically the final trap was like, there's these two shackles on each side of this pendulum table that kind of moves with the lever. And
this trap was ridiculous.
Yeah. And what this was like going to be basically what the trap the main CEO woman was going to go to, but now the rug's been pulled and they kind of forced John Kramer, and you'd think it would be Amanda to go in that because there's two shackles. It's kind of hard to talk about this without like revealing like the ending. So just quickly, like John and Amanda knew this was going to happen. They planned this whole thing. They like knew that they were going to, like, they kind of wanted them to think that they were going to get out of this and trap John and Amanda.
The classic Saw twist, kind of double twist.
Right. Which I felt dumb after that I didn't see coming, but I didn't see it coming. And I feel like
I actually didn't, to be fair.
Okay.
I didn't.
I was worried I was going to be like an idiot. Like, I didn't see it coming. But I thought it was quite good.
Actually, we should have done, because we know what Saw's like, but I just didn't really think about it.
So there's two people on that platform, and you think it'd be John and Amanda because they planned this out. It's like, oh, it'd be us two. We know how to operate these levers to kind of game the system to get enough air to kind of go through this trap to survive. But they just shackle Amanda to a pole. At this point, the kid's outside playing soccer once again, up against the wall. You kind of realize he's just kind of like a boy that lives in the area. The groundskeeper's son, I think, and he's not in on it. He's just someone who lives near the area. But he's playing in soccer outside, and the woman kind of realizes. And John Kramer's big thing is he doesn't kill innocent people, or he doesn't kill anyone, according to him. He only goes to people that need to be tested. They are wrong ethically in some way. Whereas this kid, he's like a 7-year-old, maybe younger, just a young kid who's just playing soccer, completely innocent, super nice little boy. She kind of kidnaps him and shackles him to the other side. So then it's John Kramer and this boy that enter this trap, which it's basically they get waterboarded, but with blood, and
it's crazy.
A lot of blood, crazy amount of blood,
like a crazy amount. They're just completely like being suffocated by like bloods of blood. It was fucking insane.
And I think what the intent was, because obviously we know that they plan on doing this trap to kind of make them think. Because the big thing is that he hates the CEO woman is giving false hope to people that are going to die, but she gives them hope and thinks they aren't going to die, which is the big point here, to be like, oh, you trapped Amanda and John Kramer. But the shackles that they were in, they were able to release them. They weren't actual shackles. But I think what the intent was him and Amanda. The intent was them to go into it. They would know how long about to kind of do each side. They probably planned 30 seconds switch off so we can get our breaths and survive this thing. But obviously with the little kid, John Kramer's like, fuck this, dude. Like, I'm not getting. The kid pulls it on his end and he tries to tell him not to. But then kind of the final minute of the trap is just on John Kramer, because he's like, I'm not going to let this kid suffer. Like, he's not signed up for this. Also during this is a really sad moment, because Amanda grew very fond of Gabriella, who survived her trap. And John Kramer's big thing is if you survive the trap, we're going to get you medical treatment. We're going to get you right. You did everything right. You shouldn't suffer anymore. But the main CEO woman steps on her neck and kills her. I
completely forgot.
Yeah,
but she stands on her neck. Yeah, it was crazy.
which sucked because obviously Gabrielle and John Kramer really liked her, and it's just kind of another sad thing. But then ultimately you realize that final trap that John, the whole time they rigged the shackles, that was an actual trap. The guns that they had pointed at them were fake guns. They removed all the real bullets. And the big thing was that these people thought they trapped them and were going to get away once they grabbed the money bag of all the money that they initially stole from people that John stole back. Basically, once they grabbed the money bag and lifted up, which obviously they were going to go for, that enacted the final trap for them. Which honestly, like I was a little confused on what it was. Was it like a gas going in there? Was it just like a heat?
I thought it was like just like a gas chamber, I guess, kind of thing where they were just filling because they had like a little hole where they could get air, didn't they? And then they were kind of like battling out for the hole. But it was a bit of a weird one. I thought it was kind of anticlimactic, I'll be honest. As like the final trap goes. Agreed. It was basically like a gas chamber where they were just like suffocating, I guess. But yeah, it wasn't. I don't know. I expected something crazy. Do you know what I mean? But,
yeah, especially with the way it was building up before that with the other traps. So final trap was a little anticlimactic, but I'd say it benefited though from, I think it was one of the more clever. I feel like a lot of the Saw movies, you're like immediately like, that's going to be the guy who's the twist. Like because they cranked him out every single year. So they were just clearly just throwing shit in the movies and just trying to get, a big payday because these movies are successful. Whereas this one was genuinely felt like they had care in it and the traps were interesting. And I thought the woman who played the CEO was great. Like she was very good at playing the hateable woman. And I thought she did quite good. So, you didn't like her?
No, I didn't like him.
Her partner?
I didn't think he was very, I thought she was cool. Like, I don't know. The ending for me was kind of,
it felt like
she was really good.
More than
it did, yeah. It kind of did, yeah. It did actually because it was kind of silly. But I mean, I guess that's the thing, isn't it? Maybe it's just not for me. Specifically, him though, I didn't think was great. Like, it's like
I feel that. I thought the woman though. I didn't think
she was all right. She was good. Especially for the most of the film. I didn't love the ending, but she was really she fit the role. But I don't know. I just didn't think he was the right actor for that character. Like his voice, I just don't think worked. I don't know. I didn't really. I just didn't really like him. I liked his character. I just didn't really like him playing that character. Do you know what I mean?
No, I feel that.
He was the only kind of letdown for me.
And at this point, the movie kind of ends with they die in the gas chamber. John Kramer and Amanda escape all right. We kind of mentioned that there's a couple people that survive. Well, there's one person that survived, the driver. He survived his trap with the bombs in his arms. That I maybe have an inkling that could be someone, a face we see again, but it's hard to tell because it's between Saw 1 and 2. So, like, what is the timeline of Saw 11 going to be? Because let's be honest, they're making a Saw 11.
You know, I didn't even see the post-credit scene.
Do you want me to tell you it? Because it's one of my favorites of all time.
Yeah,
because you're probably.
I forgot. I forgot there was one, even though they tweeted it.
Yeah,
I just left, and then I got told about it. I was like, "Shit, I forgot
dude!"
About that.
One of my favorite post-credit scenes I've genuinely ever seen. So there's one person left in the scam that they didn't get. The guy who went to the cancer support groups to recruit people.
Of course. Yeah.
So he was obviously in on the scam. He goes to these cancer support groups to recruit people. They didn't get him though. And the post-credit scene is him, and he kind of shows you like, here's my scar of like all the way up and down his chest, which was a fake scar. So the post-credit scene hits, and he's strung up, and he's got a contraption on him, and they're like, "Oh, where's your scar? Like you don't got this like little thing inside of you, or your scar's gone." And then it's just like this crazy trap that like rips open his guts and like kills him, and kind of where his scar would have been. But the person who did it was the guy from all the other Saw movies, like the detective.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Okay. And when it was like almost like a superhero review, I was like, that was good. Because like he was the one who carried that trap. Because he mentions early in the movie, there's a quick little part in the movie where John Kramer calls a guy who seemingly you kind of infer is that detective. He's like, "Hey, I have a couple guys I need you to track down who need to play our little game."
Yeah.
And then the fact that like while this was all going on in parallel, the detective got this guy, gave him a brutal trap that you see in the final post-credit scene. And it's kind of revealed that the detective's in on it too, which obviously you see in all the other Saw movies. I was like, that was really well done, because it wasn't just a throwaway scene. You'd see another trap. He gets involved. And I was like, it was just like the icing on the cake for me, where I was like, that was a very enjoyable movie experience. Like I tweeted.
I can't find the video. I said, I really
yeah,
see it
I'm
now.
sure in like a week or two, then the clips will be available to find.
Yeah.
But yeah, some people didn't get my joke that I put. I thought it was clever, but sometimes you think you're more clever than yourself. I said I almost left the theater halfway through the movie. That's how good it is. Because obviously with a movie like Saw, if it's a movie,
get that.
a couple people, and I was like, I thought it was
Really?
clever, but whatever. Maybe I was off.
No, I get it.
But that's all I have to say for it. I thoroughly enjoyed talking about this movie. I thoroughly enjoyed watching it. I think the Saw franchise could be back if they keep going down this.
I agree. I think this is a huge. Like, even though I only rated 3-star, and I'll be honest, I could go up and rewatch like a 3 or 5. But even though I only rated that, I think this is such a huge improvement to the recent. They've tried to expand on everything, but this was really going down to the basics. And if they carry on the story they've currently got, this could be back. I would maybe even say that, to be honest. So yeah, I get it.
So a 3-star for 3-star for Seth, a 4-star for myself.
Oh, hey George.
Hey guys.
If you're a fan of Saw, go see this movie. I can't recommend it enough if you're a Saw fan. And I think this could be something that brings in new fans to the franchise as well. Because I'm not gonna say I don't think so. You absolutely don't have to see all 9 movies for this.
Just watch
really,
the first one.
Yeah, the first one's the only one you need. Maybe the first 3 to get some better context ideas, but definitely the first 3 is all you need.
The first one is great. If you watch that, imagine if you had only watched that one and the first one. That'd be a pretty good double bill, wouldn't it? Really?
Yeah, definitely. But with that, we'll end our discussion of Saw, and now George will take back over and get us into the horror sci-fi-ish portions.
I put my
sorry, George.
I swear, no, that's
I'm
fine.
surprised you fall asleep or something.
I put my headphones on for a hot sec to see where you guys were, and all I heard was intestines used as a jump rope, and I was like, I'm gonna take my headphones off now. Like that, I don't want to listen to that right now. But yeah, so those were our new release movie reviews, and as we said, we're gonna be doing a little bit more of a horror segment over the next couple of weeks. And by little horror segment, I mean, like I said in the beginning of the episode, every week, Seth and I are gonna pick one movie. This week was a science fiction horror movie, so I selected The Thing, which I believe was this your first watch, Tyler?
It was my first watch. Yeah,
it was not. It was not Seth's first watch. It was probably Seth's 400th watch. But I picked The Thing. I figured that'd be a fantastic horror movie to start with. Obviously, Seth and I hold it to a very high esteem. It's my number 2 horror movie of all time, right behind The Shining, and I just rewatched it yesterday, and I feel like the more and more I watch it, the more and more value I find in it. So we'll start with Tyler, first watch of the 3 of us, so I definitely want to get your thoughts first.
Yeah, first thing I'll mention is in my Letterboxd comments, someone said this movie stole the concept of Among Us, and then someone responded, Among Us, the video game that came out in 2018, and was inspired by the thing. I was like, you can't be falling for bait comments like that. That's really funny. But yes, I can see the comparisons because this absolutely is basically a game of Among Us where there's a parasitic thing happening and a monster out there that are taking down these creatures and no one knows why, and killing people off, and you kind of are all wondering like who's in on it. One of us has got to be the kind of thing behind this here. So I can see with the Among Us comparisons, but I just thought it was a funny comment. Yeah, The Thing, cool movie, man. Like the practical effects are just, I don't even know if I have words to describe. Bonkers, bananas, delectable, gross, incredible, awe-inspiring, crazy practical effects that are just so fun to watch. There's so many sequences. Like I think I said, there's probably like a dozen or so sequences that I think are some of the coolest shots I've ever seen. So from a direction aspect and from a practical effects aspect, like obviously similar to like a similar-ish time frame to when, The Evil Dead came out. Just the practical effects in that movie and these movies are just incredible. As for the movie itself, I liked it. I gave it a 7.7 out of 10 for 4 stars. Didn't blow me away, but it's absolutely one I can see why people would love it because it is very similar to me too, like an Evil Dead type movie where I feel like, and I guess that's probably just 80s horror in general, which I'm very not up to speed on. I haven't seen a ton, but it kind of feels similar-ish vibes where the big comparison for me is this movie felt a lot like Alien. And I obviously like Alien a little better, but very similar vibes to me for Alien. Enjoyed it, didn't love it. I think this is going to definitely be one I rewatch because it is a fun movie and it wasn't that long. If I can't remember, it's like maybe an hour 40.
An hour 50, I think.
Yeah, it was pretty quick. So it's not like a long movie by any means, but yeah, it's definitely sci-fi horror to a T. I wasn't necessarily really scared much in this movie, but I think that's more just it's harder watching older horrors that kind of still today kind of hold up based on what modern filmmaking is to actually like kind of scare you the same way like, a more modern like Insidious would where they can just like destroy you. But But yeah, very cool movie. That's kind of the big thing I have to take away from this. Just very cool. But I just didn't love it as much as I was hoping based on other people's reactions. I know a lot of people, like basically everyone I follow is a 5-star in this and is one of their favorites of all time. And for a lot of people who are horror fans, I can definitely see why. So this isn't one of those where I watch, I'm like, I don't get it. Like I absolutely get it for this one. But first watch wasn't something that I fell in love with, but it's still a 4-star because there's a lot I absolutely appreciated. But yeah, I'm excited to hear you two talk about it because both of you are 5 stars on this, but I think 5 stars honestly underselling because both of you like really, really love the movie a lot and I've rewatched it plenty. So I really want to hear your discussions on it and kind of take it away and kind of give me some insights as to your love for it.
Yeah, I love that comparison to Alien. Obviously not in like, you know, the science fiction. I think Alien dives into the science fiction elements of a horror movie a little bit more than The Thing does, but it's in terms of like its subtle filmmaking. Like the entire movie, both Alien and The Thing for me, I think the most effective part of it is just how they can take such a simple premise, how they can take relatively very minimal dialogue. They're not holding your hand throughout these films. They're not just like showing you shit. They're not giving you anything. They're really relying on you to be paying attention to this film, you to analyze kind of everyone's mannerisms, everyone's everything everyone says just holds weight when you're trying to kind of guess where this movie is going, because you really don't know who is, you know, the thing, who is currently not one of us. And I think that's what makes this movie really special, is that no matter how many times I can watch it, I'm just so constantly enthralled by the writing of this film, just how on your toes this film will keep you. I think The Thing was a good selection for this week because, like you said, Tyler, it's really not a scary movie. The practical effects fucking rip, and I absolutely love them. I mean, one of the first things we see in this movie is this dog's face like opening up, and it's just like disgusting. But it's
such
not
a
like,
sad scene.
so
Doggies
sad.
always
Yeah,
get me.
I was gonna ask you about that because I know you dislike like unnecessary dog deaths.
I think that's more
movies.
Cam. Like, I mean, I'm against him. I don't like Cam, but I think Cam's the big like disavow on that. But
Yeah.
I mean, that one was the one in The Thing is just so drawn out because they're like barking and chirping
It lasts
for a long
like
time.
10
You're like,
minutes.
you're like,
Yeah.
I just kill him already. I know it's coming. But that
goes-
dog transforming was just so crazy.
Yeah, it goes on for a while. But yeah, I'll never tell anyone like, yeah, this is one of the scariest films of all time. I don't think that's what makes this movie great. It's not the scares that make this movie great. It's just how uncomfortable this movie can maybe make you feel while you're trying to like,
suspense.
yeah, a lot of suspense. You feel like you're there with this group of characters, like you're trying to like play into their conversations. You're trying to figure out who's who's not who. And I think that's the absolute strong suit of this movie. Like I said, it just keeps you on your toes constantly. I've seen this movie probably 3 or 4 times over the last year. And again, I said this earlier when I talked about the creator, a big reason I rate, a big factor that goes into how I rate movies is, will I see myself rewatching it, and what kind of impact will this film have on me on rewatch? And The Thing is one of those movies that I can rewatch countless times and I'll just have the exact same experience every time. This just entirely suspenseful, tense, haunting film. I mean, right from the first scene. Sorry, I'm rambling, Seth. You could cut me off whenever, but right from that first scene when the helicopter lands and they're shooting at this dog, and again, you're in the position of like Kurt Russell's character, where you're like, what the fuck is going on? Why are they shooting at this dog? What is happening right now? And it just sucks you in immediately from that first scene in like this very suspenseful way where you're like, holy shit, like where are we going? Where is this screenplay going? Who's going to be the next character to get clipped? And again, just like you mentioned, Tyler, the practical effects, I love them. I think seeing criticisms on like where a lot of people say like, okay, like practical effects don't necessarily hold up as well as I would have liked. It's like, this movie was made in the 80s. Like this movie was made in the 80s. It's like if a practical effect holds up or not should not be like a necessary like deciding factor on whether or not you come out of this movie enjoying it or not. I still think the practical effects hold up. I think they rip. Seth, I'll let you talk a little bit. I feel like I just rambled for a bunch.
Very good. Yeah, so I'm similar to George. I've watched this fucking lot of times. I think this is like the perfect. There's like I said this in my review, like quick review the other day. It's the perfect like cold night film. You know what I mean? Like it's freaky, it's claustrophobic, but it's also like warm and cozy, and I just get a lot of just good vibes in this film. I really, really enjoy everything about it, and I also think it's just this for me is the perfect mix of every element that horror should have. You know, in terms of the practical effects, the visuals, the kind of claustrophobic feeling, the atmosphere, and I think this is like a landmark in cinematic paranoia because the whole theme of this film is paranoia and knowing who's who and kind of the mystery involved behind it. And I think there are so many, like George said, there are so many moments of conversation where you're really listening in and understanding, you know, maybe this character, and it's kind of the whole film unravels in the distrust between characters and them kind of figuring out for themselves. I also think that Kurt Russell is just amazing in this role. Like he is just incredible.
Can I cut you off real quick? That comment, landmark in cinematic paranoia, that might be my favorite way to describe a movie. I think.
Well, there was another film I described.
Did you just there was? Did you just like make that up on the spot?
No, because I did a review. There was another film I described this at on the podcast. Do you know what it was? And I'm sure you said it then. It was like one other film where I described this at.
Paranoid film that we watched on the podcast? Not Dead Zone. Definitely not Dead Zone.
No, it was.
Blowout. Blowout. Yeah, it had to be Blowout. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's the whole theme of the film is the thing and distrust and paranoid about who's who. But yeah, I love this film, and I think it's just such a. Not to mention, you know, everything's perfect, but the setting, it works so well. And I do love the practical effects. I think they're so silly and stupid and in your face and crazy that it works in every way that are similar to like an Evil Dead for me that works in that way, but even better. And I think what I love most is just the ambiguity of it, especially the ending. Like there's so many different things you can pull from the ending. Not even just interpretation, just in terms of how good it is. You know, the final scene is so striking, so powerful when they're sat together, and it's just understanding and realizing what position each character is in. But yeah, the thing for me, I think, is like my third rated horror. So behind, obviously, The Shining and Alien. I'm pretty sure I've had the same top 3 horrors since I was like 14. I'm not joking. It's literally been the same. And these films I've just watched over and over again. Like I usually watch each of them a few times a year. Same as George. But yeah, the thing's amazing. This is one of the horror films that literally excels in every single element you could possibly expect for a horror film to excel in. So yeah, 5 out of 5 for me, obviously.
There's really no like false note in this movie. One thing I want to ask you, Seth, and Tyler, you as well, I guess, depending on how many John Carpenter films you've seen. Seth just left. This question's for him.
Where would you rank
I'm here. I just turned the camera off. Sorry, 2 seconds.
No, I was going to ask, where would you, I don't know about rank, but like how highly would you hold the actor-director duo of John Carpenter and Kurt Russell, like in history?
It's an interesting question because there's definitely films that I don't know. Give me the list. Give me like a few of them. So there's
Escape from New York and Escape from L.A.,
Big Trouble in Little China.
Big Trouble in Little China. I gotta be missing a few. Hold on.
Those are the big ones.
Yeah, I think those are the biggest ones. Yeah, Escape from LA, Escape from New York, The Thing, Big Trouble in Little China.
Maybe all of them.
Yeah, that is it. So just those 4.
So I've
but
not
like
seen.
When you look at those 4, like for me, The Thing, obviously one of the greatest horror films ever. Escape from New York, I love. I think that's one of the better post-apocalyptic films we've ever seen. Big Trouble in Little China, it's a lot of quirky fun. I think Big Trouble in Little China is John Carpenter's like least accessible film because it feels like this is where he's straying away from like his norm the most. Still a good movie.
I've actually not seen that. I've only seen.
I like it, and then
I've seen Escape from New York. I think Escape from New York's great.
Yeah, Escape from New York.
I think
is
Escape
awesome.
from New York's great.
Yeah, but like
because Escape from LA is like polarizing, is it not? I haven't seen that one either.
Yeah, it's not. It's a 3 out of 5 for me. I only watched it the once last year, actually, when I was going through like my horror watches. or spooky season watches, if you would. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like the pairing of John Carpenter and Kurt Russell has just become so like iconic in like the horror,
Especially in
sense.
horror. Yeah.
I feel like Kurt Russell just like perfectly fits these worlds that John Carpenter has built. Like he's got like that rugged, like dirty look to him a little bit, that like overly manly look that like was very popular in the 80s, obviously with like Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. I think
Was that just sorry? Was that just me, Tyler?
No, he wrote about it a little bit, but I think I picked up what he was saying at least. But he's back now.
My bad. Is it
I
my
think it
mic?
was me.
No, it was just connection. But
You went a bit Dalek, a bit robot then. Carry on.
My fault. But yeah, I don't know. I just love the duo. I love what they've been doing together. Is there anything else, Seth, you want to touch on the thing, or Tyler? I know again you wanted to hear Seth and I talk, but I still want to hear a lot of your thoughts.
Yeah, I just want to say, like, I think this is, I mean, you could say it's about every movie, but I genuinely think about The Thing is a movie that would benefit from rewatch, because a lot of the stuff I think that makes it so great that you two love, especially, is the dialogue and picking up on people, trying to understand where they are in the situation and I don't know. I mean, truly is like Among Us, trying to figure out kind of what are all these people's motives? What are their backgrounds? What are they there for? But I think when you're watching this for the first time, like me, you're so overwhelmed in a positive way by like the crazy practical effects, the incoming dread. You have no clue what's going to happen. There's this parasitic monster that's just murking people, and you're like, what the hell's going on? That I think when that's all going on for your first time, you're trying to digest this all at once. You're not able to kind of dedicate enough of your brain resources to really pay attention to the dialogue and focus in on exactly what each person's saying when you're kind of so focused on the overarching plot and like the impending doom and what's going on. So I think when you know what's going to happen in the movie and you go on a rewatch, that's when I think the dialogue and the conversations between all these characters really starts to shine a little bit more. So that's why I think this would benefit a lot from a rewatch. I'm excited to see what I think about it when I can see it like that.
I want you to watch. So I know I'm a bit higher on this than George. I think George realized as well. I want you to watch In the Mouth of Madness, Tyler, which is another one of his works. It's fucking weird. It's like a mystery-esque. I really want to watch that one. I actually might suggest that one for one of these because I think it'd be good for you. I think I can imagine you enjoying that. But yeah, I think it does improve
psychological horror week.
No, because I've got some shit for that. I need to fix it.
I'll write it down for my.
Yeah, right. No, because In the Mouth of Madness is like, it's kind of, I will say there are a few moments that are weird, but I want something that's going to scare Tyler. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to go like easy on him for this month. I want something that's going to get him. So Tyler, stick that down for like your easy horror. Do you know what I mean? It's like,
I'll put that down for this week for my book report. If Seth is giving me In the Mouth of Madness, I'll still wait.
Yeah, do that. It's, but yeah, I know what you mean with The Thing. I think it does, because of the ambiguity of it, especially the ending, and especially, throughout, and then you will notice you kind of keep watching, you see different things, you hear different things. It all relies on the conversations and the dialogue they have. I will also point out as well that The Thing has possibly maybe one of my favorite shots in horror history, which is like the dog and him when it's like the reflection. I fucking love that, and there's so many iconic sequences in this. But yeah, I think you'll probably enjoy it more after multiple watches because it is one of those films. But yeah, so watch In the Mouth of Madness this week. I'm really intrigued by that because I love, that's my number 2 Carpenter, just above Halloween, the first one.
Okay.
Really, you have it that high? I did not know that. I knew you absolutely loved it. I didn't. A 5 out of 5?
No, 4.5.
Oh my god! I was like, damn! Wow, I did not know that.
It's interesting with Kurt Russell. Like, so obviously he'd worked with Tarantino before The Hateful Eight, so they probably just worked together on The Hateful Eight because of their previous working relationships. But a snowy landscape and Hateful Eight is very much like who's telling the truth, who's not.
One location.
Yeah, very. I don't know. I feel like that casting might have had a little more about kind of like The Thing, got a little callback. Very similar premises, honestly. We're just people are getting killed and no one knows who everyone's true identity is, and you're in a snowy one location spot trying to figure out what the hell's going on. So Kurt Russell kind of call back there.
Wow, I never at all
I probably just made that up, but I mean
no.
Well, I mean, there are similarities.
Yeah, the parallels are there. I absolutely just never even thought of that. Kurt Russell is not a name that comes to mind when you say Quentin Tarantino, even though they've obviously collaborated
Death Proof
twice.
I will say
twice.
I think. Yeah. I think so. No, he was in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Yep, he was.
Yes,
he was the director.
Yes.
I will say I think Kurt Russell is he's never really a name that gets brought up, but he's had some fantastic roles.
He's a good actor.
Really, but he never gets brought up into the conversation of the great Hollywood actors. And I think especially with his performance in The Thing specifically, Probably one of my favorite performances of all time. He probably should be, and he just fits it so well. So yeah, shout out Kurt Russell if you're listening.
If Kurt Russell's listening, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 sucks. All right, we could wrap up our The Thing review here. Next week, we're going to be doing our modern horror, so I'm excited to see what Seth has in store. It's going to be his pick. But for the remaining time we have in this episode, again, this is kind of our science fiction horror episode. Science fiction because of the creator, horror just because it's the first week of October, plus the Saw review. So we're going to be doing two things, two fun little rankings, or one ranking, one draft. We're going to start ranking our top 5 science fiction films of all time. Nothing I think we're going to harp on too long. I feel like we've all expressed our love for all of these films countless times. So I'm going to say right now I will be excluding Star Wars from my list. I don't know if it would even be on your list to begin with, but I am going to exclude it.
Can I ask? I can't include like Alien, can I?
Yeah, why not? Science fiction.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna. I'm gonna do like actual,
like true
sci-fi.
Science fiction. Okay,
just
okay.
like with like Star Wars. Star Wars like fantasy
yeah.
side or whatever. So I'll just do actual sci-fi.
It's funny because I'm doing actual sci-fi too, but Alien is an actual sci-fi film on my rankings.
Yeah.
Like
I would
have horror as a
Alien
secondary
more
genre.
sci-fi than horror.
Yeah, but what I would say is like it's like.
Yeah.
For me, it's like 50-50.
We know you love it
so
so much, so it'll be interesting to hear different film insights.
It's boring, like doing that. That's fine.
We'll just go around in a quaint circle. Seth, we'll start with you. What is your number 5 science fiction film? OAT.
Oh shit! So this is tough because I'm not a big sci-fi guy. Like I honestly don't have that many rated that highly. Like George, I have 2 sci-fi films that are 5-star.
That's
one of them is
so despicable.
But solely sci-fi, not including Alien and The Thing.
That's still a tough look.
So 5, fuck man. Yeah, so 5. I'll go Back to the Future for 5.
Yeah,
Back to the Future. Yeah, the first Back to the Future.
What's
I used to watch it all. I haven't actually watched it in about a year. I used to put Back to the Future on DVD all the time when I was younger. Back to the Future is a fantastic film. Stands the test of time in every single possible way. And it's just a beautiful film for all ages. I really like the first Back to the Future, so I'll go with that.
I'm gonna piggyback right off that because my number 5 is Back to the Future as well. Hell nice. Yeah, one of my personal favorites, one of my absolute childhood staples, I guess. One of like the movies I just remember watching so early in my life and just falling in love with it. It's been like very close to the top of my favorites list. Not even like just strictly sci-fi, just in general for forever. Fucking love it. Just like I talked about The Thing, I could rewatch Back to the Future a million times and just find new value in it and just adore it more and more every time. Tyler, your number 5. Just say Back to the Future.
I haven't logged it, so I won't pick on that. I'm going to quickly do some honorable mentions purely because these are like secondary sci-fi, so I'm not going to include them in my ranking, but they would be if I was including them. Yeah, you guys can go for it too. Rogue One, you mentioned we're not going to count Star Wars, but Rogue One would have been up there for me. What else? Mad Max is like a secondary genre sci-fi, but I consider more action.
I would have counted that, to be fair, I think.
No, like that's what I'm saying. These are all sci-fi films, but I guess personally not count.
Yeah.
I'm not going to include them in this rankings. Just like this one, especially, I think is truly a sci-fi, but I still consider it an action. Terminator 2: Judgment Day, absolutely considered sci-fi, but just not going to include that in this ranking. Same with Jurassic Park, and then what would have been my number 1 ranked of all these, but it's a secondary genre, is Her. That would be my number 1 sci-fi, but it's a romance / drama more so not gonna be my rankings. But getting to my actual rankings, number 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So number 5 for me would be 2001: A Space Odyssey, which I need to rewatch. I almost rewatched it on the plane the other day, but I was like, this isn't really a plane movie. So no,
absolutely not.
Yeah, I'm due for a rewatch on that one because I'll be really interested to see. Because I knew immediately when I watched it for the first time, I was personally conflicted on it a bit. I was like, I loved so much of that. Some of it didn't quite work for me, but I still feel like it was like a perfect movie, but just didn't completely click for me. It was just like a weird mental space I was in after watching it. So I want to rewatch it after, I don't know, it's probably been almost 2 years now since I watched it for the first time and kind of see how my thoughts have changed. But yeah, number 5 for me would be 2001: A Space Odyssey.
I will say, George, just before you do it, so you can say yours as well, but there's a few here that I wouldn't have counted as well. So Children of Men. I don't know if it's like post-apocalyptic action thriller. It's a weird one.
I'm sure on like the letterbox genres, it's all the way at the bottom.
It's got like five. It's got like five genres.
Action, thriller, probably all ahead of it.
Sci-fi. And then 28 Days Later, but that's like horror, I guess. Horror sci-fi.
Yeah.
I would also say Empire Strikes Back again. We thought it was sci-fi fantasy,
space opera.
And then I would say Threads as well. Kind of like it's a really weird one. Post-apocalyptic. It's like drama, war. I think war is like the primary one on there, and then also Clockwork Orange was like dystopian.
Okay.
And then obviously the obvious ones, Alien, The Thing, and Bride of Frankenstein as well, which is like they're all horrors. So I'm just making sure everyone knows that's why I'm not picking those ones. Anyway.
So what's your number 4?
No, you sure go.
No, it's your go.
Oh no, it's not you. No, I thought it was your go. Okay, my number 4 is Planet of the Apes. My number 4 is Planet of the Apes.
Which one?
The original.
Really?
Yeah, I love Planet of the Apes. The first one, not the.
Yeah, no, I know. I did not know you held that highly.
So Planet of the Apes, the first, was actually like my dad's all-time favorite film, the original. I used to watch them all the time as a kid, and I think it was truly just a remarkable accomplishment. Every time I watch it now, it just gives me good feelings. I also think it has one of the best plot twists ever as well, and I think it's just such a big epic on a huge scale. I do like the newer Planet of the Apes films as well, the trilogy. Some of the sequels in the original film were fucking not good. Like have you seen Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes?
No.
Like Mark Wahlberg.
I need to rewatch. I don't have any of the originals logged on Letterboxd. I need to rewatch all of them.
Some of the sequels aren't great. There's like one, and I think that as a whole trilogy, the new ones are a lot more consistent. But I do think that the original one is one of the biggest science fiction accomplishments ever. So I'll go for that as my number 4.
Awesome. Well, my number 4, you were obviously going to see some Christopher Nolan on my list. I got Inception, and I'll give.
Are we saying that's sci-fi?
Are you kidding me?
I guess so. I just like sci-fi action. Like...
What do you mean?
I have it as a sci-fi main genre on the spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet is the Bible.
I guess it is.
I'll also give an honorable mention shout out to Interstellar, not in my top 5, not even in my top 10, I guess, depending on what movies we consider pure science fiction.
I thought that would be your number 1. Oh,
that's
no,
like
Inception.
Like if I were to include The Thing and Alien and Aliens and Mad Max Fury Road, Interstellar wouldn't be in the top 10. But like if I don't include those movies, then yes, it would be in the top 10. But I got Inception number 4. Still my number 1 movie of last decade. Fucking love that thing. It is just conceptually bold. It's Christopher Nolan at one of his most audacious. I feel like you could say that about every single one of his films. He just gets more and more audacious with what he's putting on screen. So Inception, my number 4.
Yeah, so my number 2 would have been Alien, but we've talked so much about it already and talked about it's kind of more a horror that I'll remove that and say, that's another honorable mention. Alien would be in my ranking, but I won't include it because we've kind of already labeled as a horror. So with that being said, that would shift my ranking. So I already said, what did I say? 2001: Space Odyssey was 5. So that'd actually be number 4 because I'm removing Alien from my ranking. So instead, what my number 5 would actually be Arrival. So obviously, George loves that movie. Arrival. I remember watching it for the first time in college and absolutely loved it. And it was one of those, I was living with 3 other guys at the time. One of them who enjoyed movies a decent amount, and I had him watch it with me. Like I basically ran it right back. I was like, back to the beginning. Let's rewatch it. I'm going to show you it. He didn't really get it or like it nearly as much as me. And it's one of those where I was like, God, why did I even show you this movie anyways? Like just where you get kind of annoyed when you're like so excited to show someone a movie and they're like, yeah, I don't know, kind of stupid. I'm like, you're kind of stupid.
Yeah, go fuck yourself, bro.
But no, Arrival's great. Love Arrival. Amy Adams, so good in it.
That's the fuck I'm talking about. The movie's so good. Surprisingly, though, not in my top 5.
Wow. Well, a good thing I gave it at least a little shout out.
I thought Interstellar and Arrival were like guaranteed your top 3.
Arrival is my number 6, actually. Yeah, I don't quite hold it. It's so close.
I know what your top 3 is. Doesn't matter. I know what your top 3 is.
I feel like you definitely can pull my top 3. Maybe not one of them.
Your top 3 is.
Okay.
No. I know what your top 3 is.
What's your number 3, Seth?
My number 3 is like the most me pick ever. It's Metropolis, Fritz Lang's Metropolis from 1927. So I watched this recently. Like seriously, like I know people meeting me for being the black and white silent film guy, but this is truly just fucking incredible. Like to make the world it was in and just have so much illustration of kind of the social injustice with like with the gaps in society, wealth, corruption at the time. and the cities they created in fucking 20s. It really is like. So I like silent films, obviously, but I always have a thing where like I tend not to like them if they go on for a certain amount of time. Do you know what I mean? Like there is a point where this is 2.5 hours, and I was like locked in the whole time, and I truly think it's really incredible. And it's not going to be for everyone because it is, you know, very old, silent, and a long film, but the world they managed to create at the time, the social commentary within the film, truly stunning. So Metropolis is my number 3. So the most me pick ever, but you know, I'll take it.
My number 3, and I was questioning whether or not to include this, but I'm going to. It's Andrei Tarkovsky's Stalker.
Mid.
Stop. You're out of
No,
your
actually, I like
fucking
Stalker.
mind. What do you rate that? What do you hold on? What do you rate? Where's
No, I like Stalker. It's the only one I've liked. I like
4
stars. It's a good
4
film.
stars, my ass.
It's a good fit.
Seth-
You should
Seth-
speak to my dad, George, because that's like his like number 2. He fucking loves that shit.
I
It is
loved
good.
this. I saw a prompt on Twitter the other day. It was like, what is the most
Thought-provoking.
thought-provoking, I think was their wording, or something along those lines, films that you've ever seen. And like Stalker's the one that always comes to mind. It's
No, I get that. I get it.
It's so beautiful. It's so poetic. Every line of dialogue just carries so much weight to it. And the ending is just like this stunning, just opens so much room for discussion. And I love films that can do that. So I
will say
Tarkovsky's
some of the
Stalker.
shots in Stalker are like
Gorgeous.
seriously
Like crazy for 1979. Nuts.
I need to watch it again. I need to watch it again because it's been
good.
like 2 years, I think.
It's
So
so good. It's so good. You want to watch together?
not really.
Okay, that's kind of weird.
I need some time.
Tyler, your number
3.
race.
Yeah.
Number 3 for me is Interstellar. A movie I loved when it first came out. Rewatched it a ton first couple of years, and then hadn't watched it in a long time, and started to let the community on Twitter. There's a lot of people in the film community, especially, that like to call Interstellar overrated. It's obviously a very
Alex Coleman.
Alex Mid Coleman.
It's not just him though. There's a lot of people that are like,
No, but Alex is like the
the
voice of
poster
it, even
child.
though he rates it highly.
Alex Midman.
So
Alex
I
Mid.
started to let them get in my head. I was like, it's been a few years, like maybe it is overrated. And then I rewatched it. I'm like, I'm not gonna lie to myself. I rewatched it, loved the movie still. And I was like, yeah, I love Interstellar. So whatever. If you think it's overrated, I think you're overrated.
I'm putting this. Get fucked. I'm putting this on the pod right now. Alex and I are playing each other in fantasy this week, and we've made a little bet, a little side deal. If he wins, I have to raise Transformers: Dark of the Moon to a 5 out of 5.
Is that why Cam did it? I swear he did. Like,
Did he?
raised
I
it
didn't
to-
know.
Yeah, I'm sure he did.
And if
Yeah.
I win, Alex has to raise Interstellar to a 5 out of 5.
Fun little bet.
Maybe forever. I don't know. We haven't decided yet. Seth, number 2.
So my number 2 is George's favorite director. That's Signs, obviously.
You're so lost. Signs.
So
Great
yeah,
movie.
I mean, it's
Oh
an
my
amazing movie.
God,
Just
like-
one of the best films on.
We're
faith,
out here.
on
We're out
family
here rattling
dynamics.
off Back to the Future, Inception, 2001, Interstellar, and you throw in Signs.
Hey, I haven't said 2001 yet. Leave me
My
alone.
Bible spreadsheet of signs, the main genre is listed as a mystery. So
Yeah,
it
that
did
shit
not
ain't
fall
even
my
science
No,
fiction.
Signs is sci-fi.
It's obviously very much sci-fi, but the main genre for me is
What?
mystery.
Yeah,
Why have I gone so red? Jesus.
because M Night is tonally all over the place. Never has a grasp on his movies.
Can we mute this fucking guy? Yeah, like so. Signs. We spoke about this to fucking death in the episode we did with the boys on the It Looks Like a Movie podcast. But love Signs. I have a keen interest in films about faith and grief and family, and it means a lot to me. I love Signs. Signs is my number 2. Can anyone guess what my number 1 is?
Yeah,
You know?
way. I have no idea.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. Yeah,
My
who
number
knows?
2, I don't think my number 2 and 1 are a surprise at all. My number 2 is the original Blade Runner, the Ridley Scott Blade Runner.
Oh my god, I didn't even. You know when I said I knew your top 3, I literally only know one of them.
What were you thinking? What were the other 2?
I was thinking.
Probably Arrival.
Interstellar.
No, because after I think it was Arrival and Dune, actually. You know, Arrival, Dune, and I know what your number 1 is.
Dune's
I think it might have been Arrival and Dune.
Dune is close.
Shit.
Dune is
Dune
close.
was really close. Dune
Yeah,
was
Dune is
really. It was like
close.
that been number 6, I think. for
And
me.
Dune Part 2
Pure
is going to be
sci-fi.
number 1 without a doubt. Yeah, Blade Runner is like my favorite display of like science fiction world building.
The first one, yeah.
The first one. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Not the Denis Villeneuve one, the Ridley Scott one. I think it builds this world that is so just enthralling and intoxicating. It's so easy to get lost in this world. And then on top of that, this is like what separates like a Blade Runner from the creator. The Blade Runner excels in everything technically that the creator excels in, but it has a very tight script. It has a really, really solid screenplay to back it. It's in my top 5 of all time. I fucking adore that movie. Tyler,
I didn't think about that one.
My number 2, we just chatted about it a little bit, is Dune. That's my number 2. So I got 2 Denis Villeneuve in my top 5. Obviously one of the best, maybe the best modern sci-fi blockbuster director out there today. I feel like that's not that crazy of a take to say.
It's not crazy at all.
But yeah, Dune. I mean, everything I wanted to be and more. Saw it in theaters, loved it, rewatched it, because that was also not the same as Interstellar, but I saw it in theaters, and then kind of a lot of my friends saw it after me and were kind of like, oh, that was really slow, didn't love it. And then I rewatched it when it came out, and I was like, maybe I was just, seeing an IMAX, maybe that like really raised my opinion on it. But then I rewatched it on just like a laptop screen when it came out on streaming. I was like, oh yeah, this movie still fucking rips. So Dune is amazing. I can't wait for Dune Part 2. Really can't wait for Dune Messiah. I kind of know a little bit, but I'm trying to stay as blind as possible to what's going to happen. But yeah, Denis Villeneuve, so happy he's taken on the series.
Dude's got it. He's good.
He understands how to make a sci-fi blockbuster for sure.
Seth, number 1. What is it, bro?
This lighting has changed like mad.
I was about to say, you got dark fast.
Like really quickly. What the fuck?
You got dark really quickly.
It's not even close to night out there, right? It's just cloudy or something?
No, it's daytime.
Yeah.
What the fuck is happening to me right now, bro? What the fuck? Apologies if you can't see me right now.
Yeah,
my number 1.
E.T.
Easy. My number 1. I do just want to shout out quickly. Shout out to Eternal Sunshine. Obviously, that's romance.
Yeah.
I didn't say it in the things. And also another 4.5 I didn't shout out is Wall-E. So shout out Wall-E as well.
Wow.
And Mad Max actually. Yeah, so my number 1 is 2001: A Space Odyssey. What a surprise! Seeing this in the cinema again a few weeks ago was just blew my head off. One of the best spectacles in the history of the medium of cinema. Truly incredible. Everything a film should be. One of my favorite films of all time. Film I've seen over and over again. Film I watched when I was like 13, and I don't even think I liked it at the start, to be fair. But just one of the favorites of all time. This is the most expected number 1 for me at all. Let's be honest. I think it truly is the perfect sci-fi film and one of the most important films of all time. So 2001: Space Odyssey is my number 1.
Random. Well, I'll quickly piggyback off that. My number 1, without a doubt, is 2001: Space Odyssey. Just like Seth said. Its influence is unrivaled. Its story is just deeply profound. Hal is like one of my favorite villains on screen, just constantly haunting, constantly unpredictable. He makes your body fucking itch. My question for you guys. It wouldn't be in my top 10, but would you consider Everything Everywhere All at Once a science fiction film? Like it is.
Let me address the Bible.
Okay.
I'll get back to you.
Sure.
I think that's like I would consider that's like that is the primary genre.
Letterboxd
apparently it's not. Apparently it's third.
Letterboxd has action and adventure over it, which kind of shocks
adventure.
me.
Action makes sense, I guess.
I think
like
sci-fi all
makes
sense.
Yeah, it's not even listed as a sci-fi anywhere on IMDb. So that means on my spreadsheet it's not listed anywhere as a sci-fi. But I'm gonna add it right now because
me and Tyler currently are the polar opposites of lighting.
Yeah,
Tyler's absorbing the light. No one's going near me. Jesus Christ!
I'm relying on that natural sunlight right now in this gloomy New York City day. Tyler, right. I don't know what your number 1 is. Is your number 1 Blade Runner? What's your
it is Blade Runner.
It is Blade Runner. Okay.
To put it off for way too long, and it instantly became one of my favorite films of all time. And
wait, number 1, yeah.
Number 1 sci-fi, yeah.
I mean, just Blade Runner, not Blade Runner.
Yeah, sorry, Blade Runner. Blade Runner 2049, I didn't like as much. It's like George said, Blade Runner itself and Blade Runner 2049 obviously as well. Incredible technical marvels with crazy production design, world building, cinematography, directing. Both Ridley Scott and Denis Villeneuve knocked it out of the park with their direction of the films. But the thing that Blade Runner had that 2049 was just missing for me is just the iconic quotes and the stuff that stuck in my head long after the movie ended, which I do think Blade Runner 2049 might have a little bit of if I watch it again, but I've only seen the original Blade Runner once and it just stuck in my head for days after. Like, what's that guy's name? Ruger Beatty.
Oh, yeah.
It's so good. And and I don't usually love Harrison Ford performances, but I think he's really good in this, which obviously is like a funny thing, like how he like kind of purposefully tanked the voiceovers or whatever for this movie because he thought it was stupid. But I still thought he was good in this, and I don't know, just the first Blade Runner in me just stuck in my head so much more than Blade Runner 2049. I just loved it so much. So and it just ended the tears in the rain, just so iconic. I love Blade Runner, such a good movie.
I think I prefer that slightly, to be honest, over the newer one.
2049 was so good though.
Yeah, I mean that's obviously an immaculate film as well. Just
so good.
Yeah,
they're both good.
Mid.
I had Back to the Future at number 5, Inception at number 4, Tarkovsky's Stalker at number 3, Ridley Scott's Blade Runner at number 2, and 2001: A Space Odyssey by the obvious legend, Mr. Stanley Midman.
Wouldn't say mid.
Midbrick. Stanley Midbrick.
I had 5 Back to the Future, 4 Planet of the Apes, 68, 3 Metropolis, 2 Signs, and 1 2001: A Space Odyssey by Stanley Goatbrick.
I had at number 5 Arrival, number 4 2001: A Space Odyssey by Stanley He's All Right Brick. Number 3 I had Interstellar. Number 2 I had what did I have for number 2?
You had
number 1 was Blade Runner. Number 2 was Dune.
Dune. Dune.
Yep.
Fair enough.
Interesting. Did you say Interstellar, or am I bugging out?
Interstellar was 3. Yeah.
Yeah, he did say Interstellar.
Yeah. All right, and obviously horror time. We are going to be drafting horror movies from the 80s.
Which, as we mentioned, I have 7 logged, so gonna count on getting these without.
Yeah, but like you don't have Nightmare on Elm Street logged. Have you not actually seen that? Because I know you really.
Wow, you haven't seen Johnny Depp in Nightmare on Elm Street?
That's crazy.
Interesting.
The order of our draft, snake draft, is Seth, Tyler, George. So Seth, first pick. Obvious where you're going, but
The Shining.
Yeah.
Whoa, I now have 6 films remaining.
Well, you can pick one right now.
If you want votes, you know what to pick next. If you want votes.
Yeah, The Evil Dead, right? Is that what you're thinking?
No.
Oh, no. I was thinking the one we spoke about
we
on
just reviewed.
Yeah.
Oh,
George?
shit. I didn't update my spreadsheets. That's my
the
bad.
Bible has let Tyler down.
So actually, then I have 8. I have 8 available, but I'll go with The Evil Dead. I'll go with The Evil Dead because I think that's also another strong one.
That is a strong one. Wow, giving me a layup here with 2 back-to-back. I'm obviously going to take The Thing. Steel at the 3rd pick.
Then you're going to take mine.
Recent first watch of mine. I'm going to take Dario Argento's Opera.
Okay, cool.
Stunning film. Savage film.
Cool.
Okay, so in my second pick,
you got 6 left.
Yeah, don't have much to choose from still. I will go with Aliens.
Yeah. Wait, Aliens?
That's not horror.
Yeah.
It's a sci-fi horror.
No horror.
This is a sci-fi horror episode.
You know what? I will let you off, but I don't think that's horror.
Yeah,
is that even not horror on Letterboxd? I don't think it
it's
has.
Not,
I'll let you off though.
I'll give it.
Whatever.
It is scary. It do be scary sometimes.
Alien is definitely way more of a horror than Aliens, but
I'll go. So I'll go Evil Dead 2, obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
And then I'll also go for. I've got a bunch of. I'll go for my favorite Cronenberg. I'll go for Videodrome.
No.
Yeah.
Dick.
Great film.
I thought I can get that back.
This is my 3rd pick.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Right, I only have 3 movies left, so I don't think any of them will be taken though. So I think we'll be okay. So 3rd pick, we are gonna go with. It's another sci-fi horror, so you guys aren't gonna like it, but it's The Dead Zone.
Oh, I'll give you that.
That's like a Twilight Zone
Yeah,
movie.
yeah.
I'm not fucking taking that.
No, I'll get
It's listed as a horror. Like
Yeah,
horror
yeah,
movies
I
don't
will.
have
No, it's a
I
horror,
will
but I just didn't like it that
absolutely give you
much.
that.
Oh no, it's a 6 out of 10 for me. But I don't have much to work with.
Really don't.
I don't have much to work with.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
That's a tough draft board right now.
I think it's funnier than me not participating though, so I enjoy it.
Yeah, it's fair. It's fair.
I'll get some iconic on my board, and I'll go A Nightmare on Elm Street. Obviously,
think about that.
just rewatched
Great
that.
film. Haven't seen.
Can you watch it? It's so good.
Oh, definitely.
I don't know if Tyler would like Nightmare on Elm
I
Street,
feel like he
honestly.
would. It's like a campy. It's not scary. It's like stupid campy. You know.
No, but that's what I mean, though. I don't
Nah,
know if he'd
it's
like it.
very
because of that.
classic '80s slasher.
He didn't like Evil Dead, George.
No, it's not like.
I know
Evil
you did
Dead.
like Evil Dead. No, you did like Evil. No, I just mean like I don't know. I'd be keen to see his thoughts on that. I'm not
maybe.
sure.
And then I'll go with my next. I guess the highest rated '80s horror left for me is Possession.
Possession.
You know, I've still not seen Possession. I've been meaning to watch that for like 2
Yeah, you
years.
should-
It's
I
kinda
think you'll
weird.
very much like
Yeah,
it.
I know.
I like
My fourth pick, I will go with a movie I actually rate decently high for this draft, a 7.3 out of 10, so decent.
Hell.
Psycho 2.
Wow. You and Owen, man.
still-
You and Owen holding that Psycho board high.
I still haven't seen
I like
it.
the Psycho franchise.
Back
Okay.
to back. Round out the draft with your 4 and 5.
So I'll go 4. I'll go George A. Romero's Day of the Dead. Part of his, obviously, his franchise. Great film. Love a zombie film. Not my favorite. Dawn of the Dead is my favorite, but Day of the Dead is probably second. And then my 5th pick, I will go for the film known for its transformation sequence, An American Werewolf in London.
Damn it.
Yes.
I wanted that.
All right.
Scum.
My final pick in the draft will be the last movie on my list available, Psycho 3.
Stop it.
Psycho 3, directed by
These
Anthony
actually
Perkins.
horrors? What are they like? Are they actually? Like, I've
They're
not
all
seen them.
horrors for sure. They're all
Okay.
horrors.
So
Yeah.
fucking
Primary genre horror. So 2 of them are more sci-fi horrors, but you know what? I appreciate you letting me have them as I didn't have any other options. Plus, this week's theme
Just-
is sci-fi horror, so
It
it kind
is
of
sci-fi horror.
Yeah,
You're good,
it
you're good,
works.
you're
It
good.
works.
And then I'll take, another iconic 80s horror movie in Poltergeist.
George, there's one that I'm really surprised you haven't taken.
Which one?
Although,
Angst.
yeah, is it horror?
It is horror. It's on my horror list. I actually rank it higher than Nightmare on Elm Street and Poltergeist.
Oh.
But I
What
think
the fuck are you taking then? What
I
are you
don't know.
doing?
No one's seen it. I'm here for the votes, baby. Seth took The Shining, Evil Dead 2, Videodrome, Day of the Dead, and An American Werewolf in London. Tyler took The Evil Dead 1, Aliens, The Dead Zone, Psycho 2, and Psycho 3. And George took The Thing, Opera, Nightmare on Elm Street, Possession, and then Poltergeist. That about
Any honorable mentions? I've got The Fly for me.
I got
I
none.
still haven't seen. Yeah, Tyler, you got one?
No, I got none.
I still have not seen The Fly, believe it or not. A little annoyed. I should watch it. Everyone always obviously.
Isn't that
raves.
episode of Breaking Bad that's really mid and boring that people say is good?
No, it's not mid boy. It's great. How dare you? That's probably the. Reanimator I really like as well. You know what? There's a lot of 80s horror. I have like the 2 to 3 range. Honestly, there's like a lot of like mid-range ones for me that I've seen. Poltergeist. Actually, no, you said that one, didn't you?
I said
Yeah.
Poltergeist. That was my last.
Poltergeist is
pick.
cool. Poltergeist is cool.
All right, sorry. I'm trying to pull up the Patreons, the executive.
What about Jaws 3D?
Jaws?
Jaws 3D? Have you seen Jaws 3D?
I don't think
George?
I've ever seen Jaws 3D. Honestly.
It's got a 1.8 on Letterboxd.
Yeah, I'm probably never gonna watch Jaws 3D for that
No, it's
exact
quite fun.
reason.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is pretty cool. Christine's pretty cool. Halloween 2 I thought was okay. Opera. There's some good picks in.
Opera's good.
I have the executive
That's very
producers
good.
pulled up if you want me to run through them if you don't have them up.
I have them. It's
Okay,
50.
yeah,
It's
go
the
for it.
50 and 20 tier, right?
25, 50.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that about wraps up our episode. A little bit on the wall. Actually, no. We're pushing what 2 hours maybe because we started a little
2 hour
late.
15.
Yeah,
Yep.
2:15 maybe. So I guess fairly standard for a Real Talk episode. But that was week 1 of our like a horror month of horror.
I thought it went well. I'm gonna be excited for this month. Like I know you had to step away for the
No,
Saw.
I enjoyed it.
We talked deep into Saw and like creator, sci-fi horror, then some sci-fi horror specifically. I thought this.
Are you
going to
watch this? Are you gonna watch Saw this week, George?
Yeah, I'm gonna try to get to it. I don't think I have a screening every day this week.
Oh
That's
shit!
like
You've got.
yeah, that's like the one thing holding me back right now is just I have a screening. So I have a screening today. I have 2 tomorrow, 1 Monday, 1 Tuesday, and I don't have a screening Thursday, and that's the only day I don't. So if I can get to a theater Thursday, that'd be very optimal.
What are you going to recommend for me for my book report for next week? Seth did an In the Mouth of Madness. Do you have one in mind for me?
Seth did In the Mouth of Madness. I'm gonna give you. I really don't want to be a dick and give you something like overly scary. I want to.
So that's what I'm interested to see what you guys choose. If you want to go like, oh, I want to scare him route, or if it's like these are iconic horrors that you need to see.
No, mine's that I just really like the film.
That's what I'm like kind of hoping for. But if you wanted to scare the shit out of me, I'm fine with that too. I'm kind of hoping to get like the classics out of the way.
This is a 4.5 out of 5 for me, but this is probably one of the most like among my mutuals on Letterboxd, probably one of the more polarizing horror films out there. It Follows.
Oh shit! Yeah, that's an interesting one.
Watch it. I'd be very curious to see like what
Maika
side
Monroe,
you fall
is that her
on.
name?
Maika Monroe, the girl that was in Watcher. Yeah, so I'd be curious to see what side of the spectrum you fall in for It Follows. But that wraps up our episode. A little sci-fi horror episode for you guys today. Next week is going to be our modern horror. So Seth hasn't picked the film yet, so I'm excited to see what he picks. And then really that's going to be an open discussion kind of day. We're going to talk about Jordan Peele, Ari Aster, Robert Eggers, any other modern horror, up and coming horror filmmakers that we want to talk about. Just really an open discussion.
Ducorneau.
Is that the one that did Titan
and Kyle Edward Ball.
Okay, basically, it's going to be an open discussion, so we'll come prepared, and then we'll follow up that episode with a post 2010s horror draft. So thank you guys for tuning in today. Shout out to all of our Patreons. Shout out to all of our supporters. Shout out to everyone that follows us, subscribes to us, engages in our content. To our executive producers, Mr. Al Bodie, Alexander Kephart, Mac Wells, Remy Walker, Stefan Johnson, Seven Mod Jeffy, AJ Quigley, Alex Bisco, Ben Leggy, Ben Hansey, Benjamin Vetch, I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly, Bram Vitz, Brody Young, Callum Singh, Cody Whitney, Dakota Buckner, Dean Kodamanidis, Dylan Chip or Dylan Quinn, Ferdinand 04, Hamish Edwards, Isaiah, Jimmy O'Connor, John Anderson, Jordan Gagg, Josh Hines, Casper Lundberg, Luke Deerhog, Marcellus, Matthew Bradley, Riem Bates, sorry if I pronounced that incorrectly again, Reese David, Rocco 1.0, Robert Leo Gizlazan, Sam's 43, Sean Morales, Tad Mbuji, Trey Arzi, Will Kim, Eunice BBX, and Zach Graves. That about wraps up Real Talk episode 56. We will see you later this week. We are reviewing Cloverfield on Friday. So we'll see you
I don't even know if I know what Thursday's draft is.
I don't know what Thursday's draft is too. I regretted starting that sentence.
There will be one coming out though.
There will be something on Thursday. I don't know what it is yet. But thank you guys for tuning in. Enjoy your week.